You're here now, you've made it through the day, and that's enough. Whatever came before this moment can stay behind you. Right now, there's nothing more you need to do. No problems to solve, no roles to play. Just sit back, breathe slowly, and let your body soften. Let the noise quiet down. The weight you've been carrying doesn't need to come with you into this space. It can wait. You've earned a pause. There's a kind of peace in simply stopping, in choosing to listen, not to the rush of the world, but to something quieter, something older. You don't have to think hard right now. You don't have to figure anything out. Just be here, still, safe, undisturbed. If you listen carefully, there's someone else here with you. Someone who lived a long time ago, but whose voice still knows how to reach us. His name was Epictetus, a man who had very little, yet found a kind of freedom most people never touch. He believed that peace doesn't come from what we own or what we control, but from how we choose to see the world, and how gently we learn to let go. Tonight, you don't need to agree or disagree. You don't need to take notes or remember anything. Just let his words wash over you. Let them drift in slowly and rest wherever they may. If something makes sense to you, let it stay. If something doesn't, you can let it pass. You are safe here. You are allowed to slow down. Epictetus has nothing to demand of you, only a few thoughts, offered like quiet company at the end of a long day. So close your eyes, if you'd like, or just keep listening. The waves are steady. The fire is warm. You're not alone. There's a kind of deep, lasting relief in realizing that not everything is up to us. The world moves in so many directions, pushed by forces we can't see and shaped by choices that aren't ours to make. Most of the time, we feel caught in the middle of it all, pulled by what others think, by what might happen, by things we wish we could change but simply can't. Epictetus saw this clearly, and rather than resist it, he welcomed it. For him, the key to peace was learning to separate what belongs to us from what doesn't. He called this the most basic and important idea. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. Our thoughts, our choices, our actions, these are ours. But everything else, our reputation, other people's opinions, the weather, the past, the future, even our health to some extent, these things lie beyond our reach. Worrying over them, fighting them, trying to bend them to our will only wears us down. This isn't about giving up. It's about getting clear. Epictetus didn't ask us to withdraw from life or to stop caring. He simply reminded us that peace begins when we stop wasting energy on what was never ours to command. It's like trying to hold back the tide with your hands. No matter how hard you push, the ocean won't change its course. But you can decide whether to stand in its way or step back and watch it pass. Each time we try to control something outside ourselves, we open the door to frustration. We feel tense, anxious, disappointed. But when we turn inward and focus on what is ours, our response, our attitude, our effort, we find steadiness. Even in a storm, we can still steer our little ship. The waves may rise, but the wheel is still in our hands. For Epictetus, the boundary between what's ours and what's not isn't just a rule, it's a kind of freedom. Once you see it clearly, you don't need to be dragged by every thought, every opinion, every change in the world around you. You start to notice how much of your suffering comes from holding on to things that were never yours to carry. And in that noticing, there's space to breathe again. Imagine walking down a quiet path. The wind stirs the trees, but you don't try to stop it. A bird calls in the distance, and you let the sound come and go. Someone passes by, and you smile, without needing them to smile back. This is the spirit of the lesson. Let the world be as it is. Let it move the way it will. You don't have to fix it all. You don't have to hold so tightly anymore. It's easy to forget. We're told from a young age that we should strive, achieve, influence, win. We're told that if we try hard enough, we can shape the world to match our wishes. And sometimes we can. But much of life unfolds beyond our grasp. Illness, loss, delay, misunderstanding. These things come whether we want them or not. And trying to control them doesn't prevent pain. It adds to it. Epictetus taught his students to practice this distinction every day, not just when life got hard, but even in small moments. If someone insulted him, he would pause and ask himself, is this my judgment or theirs? If he missed out on something he wanted, he would remind himself, I don't control outcomes, only my intent. In time, this became second nature, a kind of mental habit that softened the sharp edges of the world. And it can be that way for you too. It takes practice. It takes gentleness. But each time you let go of what's not yours, you make more room for what is. Each time you stop trying to control someone else, you come back to yourself. There's calm in that. There's strength in that. Let the noise of the world fade for a while, and notice how still it can be inside you. This is not detachment in the cold sense. It's not about being distant or numb. It's about clarity. It's about choosing where to place your effort, your care, your attention. Epictetus wasn't indifferent. He cared deeply about virtue, about kindness, about living well. But he refused to let his peace depend on things outside his power. He knew that life would test him, that people might wrong him, that his body might weaken, that his fortunes might change. But none of that could touch who he was, unless he let it. To live this way is to live rooted, not stiff, not closed off, but grounded. You can still feel things. You can still hope, love, try. But when the wind rises, you don't break. You bend, you adjust. You remember what's yours to shape and what's not. And slowly, over time, the need to control fades. You stop arguing with what's already happened. You stop clinging to what might never be. You become more patient with others, more forgiving of yourself. You start to trust the rhythm of things. Even if you don't always understand them, you start to rest. So tonight, if there's something weighing on you, something unresolved, something you've been trying to fix or force, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, is this really mine to hold? And if it's not, let it go. Even just for now. Let it drift to the side like leaves in the breeze. You can pick it up again tomorrow, if you need to. But for tonight, you deserve a little peace. Epictetus would remind you, what disturbs your mind is not the event itself, but your judgment of it. And judgments are yours to change. You have that power. You always have. The rest, the chaos, the delays, the silence, the noise, it will all move the way it wants to. Let it. You are not powerless. You are not small. You are simply human. And that means you have a choice. You can meet life as it is, moment by moment, breath by breath, and tend to what's yours with care and dignity. That is more than enough. That is strength. And now, with the night around you and the world outside quieting down, you can let your mind rest. There is nothing you need to solve right now, nothing you need to grasp or prove or explain. Just breathe. You're already doing enough. You're already enough. Let yourself rest. Let it all pass, like clouds across a sleeping sky. So much of our tension comes from wondering how things will turn out. We try, we hope, we prepare, but still we find ourselves gripping the edge of what's next, waiting to see if it will all go the way we want. Epictetus understood that quiet kind of struggle, the way the mind clings to a future it cannot shape. He didn't tell people to stop caring. He simply pointed to the hidden cost of attachment, to the fear, frustration, and anxiety that come when we tie our peace to something uncertain. There's a difference between doing something with care and doing it with attachment. The first is calm and steady. The second is full of tension. When we attach ourselves to outcomes, we put our well-being in someone else's hands. We say, "I'll be okay, but only if this happens." And the problem is, sometimes it doesn't. Even when we do everything right, even when we try our hardest. The world moves on its own schedule, with its own logic, and no amount of effort can guarantee a particular ending. For Epictetus, the answer wasn't to stop acting. It was to act with freedom, to put your full heart into what you're doing, and then let go of how it turns out. He believed the only thing that matters is how you show up in the moment, not whether the world gives you what you asked for in return. And in that simple shift, there's relief. You don't have to carry the weight of the result anymore. You only carry your part, your choices, your attention, your care. It's a little like planting a seed. You can water it, shield it from wind, check the soil, but you can't force it to grow. You can't control the weather. All you can do is tend to what's yours and trust that the rest will unfold in its own time. And if it doesn't bloom the way you hoped, you still know you did your part. That's enough. Letting go of outcomes doesn't mean becoming passive. It means becoming present. When we stop chasing the future, we return to where we are. We listen more closely. We breathe more deeply. We give more fully, not because we expect something back, but because giving is in our nature. And slowly, something shifts. The moment becomes enough. So often, we think that peace will come after the success, after the decision, after the problem is solved. But Epictetus would ask, what if peace isn't waiting for you in the future? What if it's already here, just hidden beneath your expectations? When you stop needing things to go a certain way, you stop resisting what is. And in that stillness, you find rest. It's okay to want things, to hope, to dream, to try. But when you tie your worth to the result, you begin to suffer. Because results come and go. They depend on others, on timing, on chance, but your effort, your intention, your integrity, that belongs to you alone. That's where your power lives. When Epictetus taught his students, he reminded them that the only thing they truly owned was their will. Everything else was borrowed. Health, possessions, praise, success. Do not seek for things to happen as you wish, he said, but wish for them to happen as they do, and you will find peace. Not because life will always be kind, but because you will no longer be held hostage by what it gives or withholds. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. You've already done enough. The future doesn't need you to worry about it tonight. It doesn't need you to solve it. It will come, or it won't, and you'll meet it either way. What matters now is this breath, this moment, this quiet space you've made for yourself. Think of all the times you hoped something would turn out one way, and it didn't, but something else grew from it. Or maybe nothing did. Maybe you just learned to sit with disappointment. Even that is growth. Even that is strength, because every time you let go and keep moving, you prove to yourself that you don't need certainty to keep going. This way of living doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care wisely. You act because it's right, not because it guarantees reward. You speak kindly because it's who you are, not because it guarantees understanding. You rest when you need to, not because you've earned it, but because you're human, and rest is part of life. Epictetus would never ask you to numb your feelings or silence your hopes, but he would ask you to notice the way they can trap you when you cling to them too tightly. When your happiness depends on a yes, a win, a clear path, you give the world too much power over you. But when you find joy in the act itself, when you see effort as the reward, you take that power back. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. Let the pressure lift. You're allowed to do your best without demanding that life give you exactly what you asked for. You're allowed to trust that your part is enough, even if the result isn't clear, even if it never comes. Some nights you'll lie awake thinking about things you can't change. What someone said, what didn't happen, what might happen next. But those thoughts don't need to decide your peace. You can let them pass, like wind brushing through the trees. You can feel them without following them. You can breathe and say to yourself, I did what I could. That's all anyone can do. And the more you live this way, the more light you feel. Not because life gets easier, but because you're no longer carrying what you don't need. You're no longer chasing shadows or gripping tightly to things beyond your reach. You're free to live, free to rest, free to begin again, each day, without the burden of needing it all to go a certain way. Epictetus lived as a slave, then a teacher. He lost much, but he never lost himself. And maybe that's the point, to live in such a way that no matter what comes or goes, you remain rooted in who you are, steady, calm, awake, not to outcomes, but to life itself. So tonight, as you lie back and let your eyes grow heavy, remember, you don't have to figure it all out. You don't have to win anything before you can relax. Your worth was never tied to the result. It was always here, quiet, constant, undeniable. You are enough. And now let it all go. Let the future come in its time. Let your thoughts slow down. Let your body soften. You're safe now. You've done your part. The rest can wait. There's a quiet kind of freedom in needing less. In a world that constantly pushes us to reach for more comfort, more wealth, more recognition, there's something deeply restful about stopping for a moment and realizing you already have enough. Epictetus lived this truth fully. He had very little by most standards. No riches, no property, no high status. And yet, he believed himself rich, because his peace came not from what he owned, but from how little he needed. He taught that contentment doesn't come from adding to your life. It comes from subtracting, from learning how to sit with what you have, without craving what you don't. To be content with little doesn't mean you reject all pleasures or comforts. It simply means they don't control you. You can enjoy what comes without fearing its loss, and you can let go of what leaves without losing yourself. So much of our restlessness comes from wanting more. We scroll, we compare, we imagine what could be. But wanting never really ends. The moment you get what you thought you needed, a new desire appears. It keeps you chasing. It keeps you unsatisfied. Epictetus saw this, and instead of feeding that hunger, he stepped back. He asked what was truly necessary, what truly mattered, and he found that very little did. He often said, Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. When you no longer need much to feel at peace, you stop being pulled in every direction. You become steady. You become light. And in that simplicity, there's a kind of joy that can't be shaken. Being content with little doesn't mean your life has to be bare. It means your peace isn't dependent on what's around you. You could have a soft bed or a hard one, a quiet room or a noisy street. But inside, you remain calm because you know the difference between what you want and what you truly need. Think of how soft the world feels when your expectations fade, when you no longer demand that the day go perfectly, when you're no longer measuring your worth by what others have. You can breathe again. You can enjoy a cool breeze, a kind word, a simple meal, and let that be enough. Epictetus reminded his students often that he didn't need luxury to feel rich. He said that the body can be satisfied with very little, something warm to wear, something plain to eat, a place to lie down. Everything else is extra. And when you treat it that way, when you see abundance not in things, but in your ability to live well with less, you feel strong. You feel free. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. All the voices telling you to do more, to earn more, to become more, they're not speaking to your peace. They're speaking to your fear. But fear doesn't guide you toward rest. It keeps you moving long after you need to. It keeps you searching in places that were never meant to satisfy you. You don't need as much as you think to feel calm. You don't need more answers, more plans, or more praise. You just need space, a little stillness, a little room to be yourself, without pressure or comparison. That's what it means to be content with little. It's not about what's missing. It's about what's already here, quietly waiting to be enough. Sometimes, when the day feels overwhelming, we imagine that something outside of us, a new purchase, a change of scenery, a compliment, will fix what feels wrong. But those things come and go. The feeling might lift for a moment, but it doesn't last. What stays is the part of you that can sit with what is without needing to escape it. That's the part Epictetus wanted to strengthen. Not your possessions, not your image, but your inner steadiness, the kind of calm that doesn't depend on circumstances. When he was cold, he wrapped himself tighter. When he was hungry, he ate what he had. When he had nothing, he reminded himself, I still have my mind. I still have my will. That's enough. You can let go now. You don't have to chase anything tonight. You don't have to prove yourself. The moment is already enough. The stillness you've made, the breath you're taking, the body that holds you, it's all here. Quiet, steady, complete. And in this moment, you're not missing anything. You're not lacking. You're not behind. You're simply alive, resting in a body that asks only for kindness, a little warmth, a little care, and permission to stop reaching for more. To be content with little is not to live a lesser life. It's to live a freer one, a simpler one where you get to choose what matters, one where your happiness isn't borrowed from the future or borrowed from someone else's opinion. It's here. Small, maybe, but real. Epictetus knew that what you truly own can never be taken from you. Not your character, not your thoughts, not your ability to respond with kindness or patience or grace. And that kind of wealth doesn't fade. It doesn't wear out. It doesn't depend on luck. It grows the more you use it. So tonight, let go of the rest. Let go of the things that didn't go your way. Let go of what you wish you had. Let go of the pressure to have more. None of that is needed here. You've arrived in a space where less is enough, where peace is simple, where nothing is missing. And maybe that's what rest really is. Not the absence of noise or activity, but the absence of need. The quiet understanding that right now, in this stillness, you already have what you need to be okay, to be safe, to feel whole. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Let yourself soften. Let yourself receive the calm you've earned. There's nothing more to reach for. Just breathe. Just rest. You are enough, exactly as you are. There are moments when everything feels loud, when plans fall apart, people speak in harsh tones, and the future clouds over without warning. Chaos doesn't always come with warning signs. Sometimes it slips in slowly, and sometimes it crashes in all at once. And when it does, it's easy to feel swept up in it. Easy to forget that you don't have to move with the storm. You can stay still inside it. Epictetus lived in a world filled with uncertainty. He had no control over his early life, no comfort, no promises. But what he discovered was this: calm is not something the world hands you when things are quiet. It's something you build inside, brick by brick, until it holds steady even when the outside crumbles. He believed that while we cannot choose the events that unfold around us, we can always choose how we meet them. To stay calm in chaos does not mean pretending everything is fine. It means knowing that your peace doesn't need the world to behave. It means letting go of the habit of reacting to every shift, every sound, every surprise. Epictetus taught that the mind is like a fortress, not made of walls, but of choices. What enters, what stays, what is given weight. Those decisions are yours, even when nothing else is. The world will always have noise. Things will break. People will misunderstand. Time will twist and pull and move faster than you expect. But if you're always responding to the rush, you never get to settle. You never get to feel the ground beneath you. Staying calm isn't about closing your eyes to difficulty. It's about opening them and choosing not to panic. He said, "It's not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. A sudden change, a sharp word, a closed door. These don't shake us until we decide they must. The story we tell ourselves, the fear, the resistance, the what-ifs, those are the real storms. And once we learn to question those thoughts, the chaos begins to soften. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. If something went wrong today, you don't have to carry it to bed. If something feels uncertain, you don't need to solve it before you sleep. Let it be what it is, just for now. Let your mind loosen its grip." Epictetus taught that composure is a habit, not a reaction. We don't wait for the world to calm down before we find our stillness. We bring our stillness into the world. He reminded his students to notice their first impulse, but not to obey it blindly, to pause, to breathe, to ask, "Is this within my control?" And if it wasn't, to release it gently, not in frustration, but in quiet acceptance. Imagine sitting in the middle of a busy street, not literally, but mentally. All around you, traffic moves, voices rise, clocks tick. But you don't need to chase any of it. You sit, you breathe, you notice. The noise is real, but it doesn't live inside you. This is the kind of calm Epictetus offered. Not silence, but steadiness. He believed that the strongest people weren't the loudest or the most forceful, but the ones who could stay rooted when the world pulled hard. The ones who could say, "Let it come. I'll decide how I meet it." And sometimes the decision is simply to stay quiet, to rest, to do nothing at all. This doesn't mean you'll never feel overwhelmed. Of course you will. Even the wisest minds feel the pull of chaos. But when it comes, you have a choice. You can give in to the rush, or you can return to the breath. You can return to what is yours, your thoughts, your actions, your presence. Nothing else is required. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. You've done enough for today. You don't need to fix every misunderstanding or finish every thought. The world doesn't need your worry tonight. It will keep spinning with or without your attention. But your mind, your peace, needs you to pause. Epictetus never said peace was easy. He knew the world could be unfair, fast, unpredictable, but he also knew that people could be steady in the middle of it. Not by force, but by remembering what really matters. A calm mind, a kind heart, a willingness to let things pass when they don't belong to you. You are not defined by the noise around you. You are not made of panic or pressure. You are something quieter, deeper, older than the chaos. And no matter what the day brought, you are allowed to return to that space. Right now, without needing permission. If you are hurt today, you can still rest. If you are confused, you can still find quiet. Nothing has to be perfect before you can feel safe. You don't have to earn your way into calm. It's your right. It's already here. Beneath the thoughts, beneath the stories, beneath the noise. Let yourself slow down. Let your breath guide you back. You've been through enough. You've heard enough. There's nothing more to chase, nothing more to fear. The day is over now, and you're still here, breathing, listening, becoming soft again. To stay calm in chaos is not to control everything. It's to stop needing control. To stop arguing with what already is. To say, this too has come, and this too will pass. And in that pause, something quiet returns. A gentleness. A kind of inner warmth. The kind that doesn't need answers. The kind that simply stays. Epictetus lived with uncertainty. He didn't resist it. He learned to live well inside it, and he left behind a map for us. Not a set of rules, but a way of seeing, a way of remembering that calm is always an option, even when nothing else is. So let yourself be calm now. Let the day fall away. Let your shoulders loosen, your breath deepen, your mind soften. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to leave the chaos behind. It doesn't belong in this moment. Only you do, and you are enough. There is a quiet strength in learning to want nothing and fear nothing, not in the sense of becoming numb or closed off, but in becoming free, free from the pull of desire and the sting of worry, free from the constant reaching forward or shrinking back. Epictetus believed this was the heart of peace. Not having everything, not achieving perfection, but loosening the grip we have on outcomes, hopes, and fears. Most people spend their lives chasing things they think they need. Status, wealth, comfort, approval. And at the same time, they run from what they fear. Failure, loss, rejection, pain. But wanting and fearing are two sides of the same tension. One pulls you forward, the other holds you back. Both keep you from resting in what is. Epictetus didn't tell people not to care. He told them to be careful what they care about. He taught that the only things truly worth wanting are the things that depend entirely on us, our honesty, our patience, our steadiness. And the only fears worth noticing are the ones that help us grow, never the ones that shrink us or trap us. He said, freedom is not achieved by satisfying desire, but by eliminating it. When you no longer feel that tug inside, that if only I had this, I would be complete, you begin to soften. The mind stops running, the body loosens, there's nothing to chase anymore. And when there's nothing to chase, you can finally be still. You don't have to give up joy. You don't have to turn away from beauty or connection or hope. You simply stop depending on them for your peace. You can enjoy the warmth of the sun without needing it to stay forever. You can love without fear of loss. You can try without fear of failure, because none of it defines you. Wanting is exhausting. It keeps the mind busy, always waiting for something, measuring, comparing, planning. It makes even the quiet moments feel incomplete, as though something is missing, just out of reach. But when you let go of needing more, you begin to see what's already here, not in a dramatic way, just gently, moment by moment. The breath, the ground beneath you, the space between thoughts, and fear. Fear tightens everything, the chest, the jaw, the heart. It makes you brace for things that haven't happened. It keeps you looking over your shoulder, waiting for the next bad thing. But most of what we fear never arrives, and when it does, we often handle it better than we expected. Fear lives in the future. Epictetus reminded us that peace lives in the present. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Whatever didn't happen today, whatever might happen tomorrow, it can wait. You're safe here. No need to perform, protect, or prepare. Let the mind rest in what is. Want nothing. Fear nothing. It sounds harsh at first, but Epictetus meant it softly, as a kind of invitation. He wasn't saying don't care. He was saying, don't chain your happiness to things that move. Don't tie your calm to things you cannot keep. Because everything in life comes and goes. People, moments, possessions, even the self changes. But if you anchor your peace in the part of you that watches it all, you remain whole. When something good happens, you smile. When something ends, you let it go. When someone misunderstands, you stay rooted. This is the rhythm of a life without clinging. A life where nothing owns you. Not praise, not pain, not desire, not fear. You are simply here, breathing, listening, existing in your own quiet strength. Some nights, your mind might circle around things you think you need. A decision, a person, a sense of closure. But these are not the keys to rest. Rest begins when the needing fades, when you realize that even without those things, you are still here, still alive, still worthy of peace. You may find that when you stop chasing, what matters finds its way to you, not because you demanded it, but because you became still enough to receive it. And if it doesn't come, you're still okay, because your calm was never built on anything outside of you. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. The messages that tell you to want more, to be afraid, to prepare for everything. They're not speaking to the quiet part of you. The part that's always known how to rest. The part that remembers how little you need to feel whole. Epictetus lived simply. He asked for little. He feared even less. And because of that, he was able to think clearly, speak kindly, and sleep deeply. His mind wasn't tangled up in what might happen or what he lacked. It was grounded, awake, at peace, and you can feel that too. Not by changing your life overnight, not by forcing yourself to feel anything, but by returning gently to what is here, the breath, the softness, the space you've given yourself tonight. All of this is enough. The less you want, the more you can see. The less you fear, the more you can feel. And somewhere inside that quiet is the calm you've been looking for. Not hidden, not complicated, just quiet and waiting. So let it all go now. The hopes that tighten the chest, the fears that crowd the mind. You don't need them right now. You're already enough, safe, whole, free. Let yourself rest. You've earned it. There's a gentle kind of wisdom in learning to accept what happens, not with resignation and not with indifference, but with calm, with openness, and with a steady heart. Epictetus spoke often about this quiet act of acceptance. He didn't mean that we should stop caring or stop trying. He meant that once something has happened, once it's already here, already real, we are no longer in the space of changing it. We are in the space of choosing how to meet it. Much of our inner struggle begins after something has gone differently than we hoped. A plan falls apart. Someone says no. A delay, a loss, a change we didn't ask for. The mind leaps in to argue. It tries to rewrite the moment. It clings to how things should have been. And that clinging, Epictetus knew, is where suffering begins. He believed that peace begins when we stop resisting reality, when we stop treating the world as if it owes us something different. Do not seek to have events happen as you want them, he said, but instead want them to happen as they do happen. This isn't about pretending to enjoy pain or misfortune. It's about learning to live in the truth of what is, without complaint, without bitterness, without the constant reaching for something else. When we accept what happens, we become present again. We stop rewinding the moment or trying to fast forward through it. We come back to now, even if now is hard. We say to ourselves, "This has happened. I am here." And then we begin again, gently, from that place. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. The day has already passed. The conversations are over. The choices have been made. Let them settle. Let them be what they are, without trying to shape them further in your mind. Acceptance isn't passivity. It's clarity. It means seeing things as they are, no better, no worse, and responding from that clear seeing. When something is outside your control, to resist it is to exhaust yourself. But to accept it is to free your energy, to use it for what is still yours to shape. Think of how many moments are made harder because we hold on to how they should have been. We imagine better versions, kinder endings, smoother paths. But the moment we're in doesn't change just because we think it should. It only becomes more painful, more tangled, more difficult to sit with. Epictetus would have reminded us that the world moves by its own rhythm. People have their own choices. Time doesn't wait for our approval. But we are not powerless. We still have the freedom to say, "I may not have chosen this, but I choose how to respond. I choose how to carry it." Let the noise of the world fade for a while. You've spent enough time thinking about what should have gone differently. There's no need to keep spinning the same thoughts. Right now, it's okay to say, "This happened. It's part of my life now." Not as defeat, but as peace, as the first step toward rest. When we accept what happens, we stop making life harder than it needs to be. We stop turning every challenge into a wound, every change into a crisis. We begin to soften, to adapt, to live more easily inside each moment, even the difficult ones. That doesn't mean it won't hurt. Acceptance doesn't erase pain, but it removes the extra layer of suffering, the part that comes from wishing the moment away, the part that tightens the jaw and narrows the breath. When you let go of that layer, what's left is simply the truth. And the truth, even when it's hard, is something you can meet with honesty and calm. Some nights, your mind might keep circling one event, one thing that happened, one thing that didn't. But even as it does, you can remind yourself, it's already happened. You don't have to rewrite it now. You can let it be. You can let yourself be. This way of thinking doesn't always come easily. It takes practice. It takes patience. But every time you catch yourself arguing with the past, and every time you choose instead to accept what's real, you build something steady inside, something that holds you even when the world does not. You are not giving up. You are growing stronger in a quiet, thoughtful way. You are learning to carry life without adding extra weight to it. That's what Epictetus offered. Not a way to avoid life, but a way to live more peacefully within it. So if today held something unexpected, something unwanted, something uncertain, you don't need to fight it now. You can let it rest. You can say, this is part of the path. You can trust that your peace does not depend on perfect moments. It depends only on your willingness to meet life as it is. You don't have to change the story before you can fall asleep. You don't need to fix the ending. You just need to let the moment be still. You just need to let yourself be still. Epictetus believed that the wisest people weren't those who controlled the most, but those who resisted the least. Those who could open their hands to the day, receive it fully, and say, this too belongs. And from that simple act of allowing, a deeper calm begins. Let yourself return to that calm now. Let your breath slow. Let your thoughts soften. Let what happened today stay in the past. It has already come. It has already gone. What remains is this breath, this moment, this quiet space where you are safe. You don't have to understand it all tonight. You don't have to make peace with everything. But if you can begin, just begin to stop resisting what already is, then you've already taken the first step toward rest. And that's enough. More than enough. Let it be. Let yourself be. And rest. The mind doesn't always wait for morning to start chasing again. Even in the quiet of night, it can stir, reaching toward what's missing, imagining how things could be different, filling the silence with wants and unfinished thoughts. But Epictetus saw clearly that peace has little to do with what we gain, and everything to do with what we're willing to release. He believed that the fewer desires we carry, the more rest we can find, not just at the end of the day, but in the middle of living. Desire is not wrong. It's natural to hope, to reach, to care. But when desire becomes constant, when we're always leaning forward, always hungry for something new, it becomes a weight. It pulls us out of the present. It tells us that something else, somewhere else, at some other time, will finally be enough. And so, rest gets delayed, pushed aside, placed just out of reach, waiting on the next goal, the next change, the next version of life. Epictetus reminded his students that desire itself was not the problem. It was misplaced desire. He asked, why be greedy for what lies outside of you, when you could be content with what is already within? The moment we let our happiness depend on things we don't control, we give away our peace. We trade the soft relief of now for the restless tug of later. Wanting less doesn't mean settling. It means stopping the chase. It means remembering that what you truly need to feel calm is often far simpler than what the world insists you pursue. A quiet room, a clear breath, a moment of stillness. These are not prizes to earn. They are already here, available again and again, if we pause long enough to notice. Desire creates movement. It stirs the mind, tightens the body, fills the space between breaths. And sometimes that movement serves us. It drives us to grow, to seek meaning, to improve. But often, desire simply distracts. It whispers that something is missing, that this moment isn't enough. And if we believe that whisper too often, we forget how to stop. We forget how to rest. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Whatever you thought you needed to feel whole, it can wait. Right now, you're allowed to let go, to close the distance between yourself and peace, not by reaching forward, but by coming home to what's already here. Epictetus believed in the strength of self-restraint, not as a punishment, but as a path to clarity. The more we let go of unnecessary wants, the more energy we have to care for what truly matters. And when desire quiets, even just a little, a different kind of awareness appears. The simple pleasure of enough. The gentle rhythm of a life no longer pulled in every direction. To rest more, we must desire less, not because we're giving up, but because we're learning to trust. Trust that we don't need everything to feel okay. Trust that life doesn't need to be perfectly arranged for us to be at ease. We can breathe into what is. We can release the urge to fix, to achieve, to prove. And in that release, we find rest. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. All the messages that told you to chase more, be more, want more, they don't need your attention tonight. Let them pass. You've done enough. You are enough. When you no longer demand that each moment deliver something new, you start to feel its fullness, the quiet, the stillness, the way your body settles into rest when there's nothing left to chase. This is not emptiness. This is freedom. Desiring less means you're no longer held captive by outcomes. You're no longer bound to the rise and fall of success or failure. You can sit in your own presence and feel it as complete. And from that still place, you can choose more wisely. You can act with care, not with craving. Epictetus lived a life with very little, but he never saw himself as poor. He said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." This was his wealth, a mind at peace with its own simplicity, a heart free from longing, a soul that rested easily in the present moment. And you can feel that too. Not all at once, and not perfectly, but little by little, as you let go of what you thought you needed, as you stop asking each day to fulfill a list of expectations, as you soften your grip on what could be, and turn gently toward what already is. Some nights the thoughts still come. They tell you what's unfinished, what's uncertain, what's not enough. But you don't have to follow them. You can listen, then let them pass. You can say to yourself, "This is not needed now." And slowly, the mind begins to rest. The body follows. Peace returns, not because everything is solved, but because you've stopped needing it to be. Desire less, rest more. It's not a command. It's an invitation, an offering, a reminder that life is not a race to be won, but a space to be lived. And the more you live from that space, the easier rest becomes, the easier everything becomes. So tonight, let yourself desire nothing, not because you've given up, but because you've arrived. Here, now, safe, whole, complete without needing to reach. Let your thoughts settle. Let your breath slow. Let your heart be light. You are already enough. Let that be true for you now. Let it carry you into rest. No matter what surrounds you, noise, change, uncertainty, the mind can remain still. That is the lesson Epictetus returned to again and again. The outer world may twist and bend, it may bring loss, confusion, or chaos, but within you there is a place untouched, a space that does not shake. He called it the inner fortress, a quiet strength, not built from walls, but from clarity and calm. He knew the world would not always be kind. He had lived it. And yet, he believed that no matter what happens outside, no one can reach inside your mind without your permission. They can speak, they can act, they can take. But how you interpret, how you respond, how you carry what happens, that remains entirely your own. That is where your freedom lives. You can't always control what the world brings to your door, but you can choose which thoughts you welcome in. Not every reaction deserves your energy. Not every opinion needs your agreement. The mind becomes stronger when it learns to be selective, when it guards its peace with kindness, not resistance. You are not your body, Epictetus said. You are not your reputation. You are your mind, your reasoned choice. This was his great teaching, that the one thing no one can take from you is your power to decide how to think, how to see, how to live from within. And when you learn to rest in that space, you feel protected. Not because nothing can touch you, but because nothing can unmake you. The mind is not a prison. It is not a trap of overthinking or a cage of worry. It becomes those things only when we forget our own authority, when we let every worry in, when we believe every fear, when we forget that we can step back, that we can watch a thought come and go without having to become it. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Whatever thoughts came with you tonight, about the day, about yourself, about the future, you don't have to believe them all. Some are just noise, some are echoes. You are not those thoughts. You are the one listening quietly behind them. The mind becomes a fortress, not by closing off, but by standing still, by becoming the place where things are allowed to come and go without being chased, without being judged. Even strong emotions can pass through without leaving scars, if the mind is patient, if the heart is gentle. It takes time to build this kind of strength. Epictetus knew that. He encouraged his students to begin small, to notice their impulses, to ask when something stirred them, is this mine to control? Is this worth my peace? And in the space between stimulus and response, they would find the shape of their mind, the outline of their freedom. You are always free in how you meet the world, even when it feels like everything is happening at once, even when things feel unfair or overwhelming. You can step back into that quiet space, the one no one else can reach, the one where your calm waits for you. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. Let it pass like a breeze across a still surface. There's no need to answer every thought, no need to chase them, no need to resist them either. You can simply notice, breathe, rest. The mind becomes softer when it's not always bracing for something, when it's not always trying to protect itself with fear or control. You can open the gates without losing your strength, because true strength isn't harsh. It's the kind that watches, reflects, and stays rooted. When you treat your mind like a refuge, you begin to care for it differently. You choose your inputs with more awareness. You let go of stories that no longer serve you. You stop building worry upon worry. And you return again and again to the simplicity of now. This is not about silence in the head. Thoughts will come, feelings will come, but you are not swept away. You are the space that holds them, that sees them clearly without needing to fix or follow. That kind of presence is what Epictetus meant by inner freedom. He taught that external things are like shadows, passing, shifting, unpredictable. But your reasoned mind, your steady heart, your capacity to reflect, that is the solid ground. And when you build your life on that ground, you become less shaken, more kind, more patient, more at ease with everything that comes. And if the day brought noise or stress, you can let it stay outside for now. You can close your eyes and return to your own space. You don't need to replay the conversations. You don't need to resolve anything tonight. You are safe inside your own calm. You may not feel strong every day, but strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's just staying with yourself gently when things are hard. Sometimes it's just taking one breath without judgment. One moment of stillness without expectation. Your mind is your refuge. It's where you can return when the world moves too fast. It's where you decide what matters. It's where peace begins, not outside you, but deep within. And the more you rest there, the easier it becomes to return. So now, as the night settles around you, let your thoughts move as they will. Don't hold them, don't follow them, let them rise and fall without pulling you away. You are already where you need to be. You are already whole. And in this quiet space, you can rest. Not because the world is finished, but because you don't need to carry all of it tonight. You are protected by something deeper. You are held by something steady. Your mind is your fortress. Let yourself rest within it now. Pain is a part of life, Epictetus said. But suffering, that's something else. He believed that much of what disturbs us doesn't come from events themselves, but from the way we judge those events. A cold word, a long delay, an unexpected outcome. These things can arrive without our consent. But the meaning we assign to them, the story we tell ourselves about what they mean, that part is up to us. That part is where peace or suffering begins. He often reminded his students that our reactions are not automatic. They are built on our judgments. Something happens, and the mind leaps in to explain it. This is bad. This is unfair. This ruins everything. And it's those thoughts, not the event itself, that stir the heart and tense the shoulders, that keep us awake long after the moment has passed. When we believe that every setback is a failure, we suffer. When we see every rejection as a reflection of our worth, we suffer. When we treat every discomfort as a problem that must be solved immediately, we suffer. The event may be over, but the judgment lives on, echoing in the mind, tightening the breath, robbing us of rest. Epictetus asked, gently but firmly, for us to pause, to notice the space between what happens and how we interpret it. He taught that this space, this small moment of awareness, is where our freedom lives. In that pause, we can choose to meet the moment differently, without judgment, without added pain. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. Let the stories fall away. Whatever happened today doesn't need to be labeled. It doesn't need to be good or bad, fair or unfair. It can just be, and you can just be with it. This is not about pretending things don't hurt. It's not about denying pain. It's about understanding where the pain ends, and where the mind sometimes adds more than is needed. A loss is real. But the belief that it should not have happened, that it broke something essential in you, that's a judgment. And it deepens the wound. To suffer only from judgment is to gently remove that extra layer. To sit with what is difficult, but not multiply it. To say, this is what happened. I don't have to like it, but I don't have to fear it either. I can meet it with presence instead of panic. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. The thoughts that swirl in your head, trying to explain, to blame, to fix, let them slow down. They're not required right now. You don't need to decide what it all means before you can rest. The mind is quick to react. It wants to protect. It wants to make sense of things. But sometimes its first judgment is not the clearest. Sometimes it speaks from fear, from habit, from tiredness. And when we believe those first reactions without question, we carry their weight far longer than we need to. Epictetus encouraged his students to step back, not to avoid life, but to see it more clearly, to ask, is this feeling coming from what happened, or from what I believe about what happened? That question, asked gently, can dissolve a surprising amount of tension. Because often, what we're holding on to isn't the event itself, but our thoughts about it. The meaning we've wrapped around it, the expectations it interrupted, the fear it awakened. These things feel solid, but they're not. They can be released, not by force, but by awareness. Letting go of judgment doesn't mean we become passive. It means we stop resisting what's already happened. We stop making the moment heavier than it is. And in that lightness, rest becomes easier, softer, quieter. If someone misunderstood you today, you don't have to replay their words. You don't have to decide whether they were right or wrong. You can simply say, that happened. I felt something, and now I let it go. The world doesn't need you to solve every feeling before sleep. Sometimes suffering comes from the smallest things, a delay, a silence, a look, not because they were painful on their own, but because we judged them to mean something deeper, something about who we are, something about what's coming next. But that meaning is not fixed. It is created, and it can be released. Epictetus lived through hardship. He knew that life can bring difficulty without asking permission. But he also knew that the mind doesn't need to carry every burden it touches. He believed that the heart can stay light, even in the midst of challenge, if it learns to hold fewer judgments. And so he trained his mind and taught others to do the same, not through force, but through kindness, through steady practice, through returning again and again to the thought, this thing I feel, do I need to carry it, or is it only a story I've told myself? You are not your judgments. You are not your first reaction. You are not the noise that sometimes fills the mind after a long day. You are something quieter, something deeper, something that can rest without needing to have all the answers. So tonight, as you lie down, notice what you're holding, not with blame, not with effort, just gently. Is there anything you're judging too harshly? Anything that could be softened? Could you let it be, even just for now? You're allowed to rest, even when things feel incomplete. You're allowed to sleep without resolving every thought. The world will continue. The story will unfold. But for now, in this moment, you're safe, and you don't have to suffer from judgment. Let the thoughts pass like leaves on a quiet stream. Let them move without trying to stop them. You don't need to make them mean anything. You don't need to wrestle with them. They're only thoughts. They are not you. You are the one who watches, who breathes, who stays soft, even in difficulty. And you are already enough. Let yourself rest in that now. Let the breath slow. Let the tension ease. You've carried enough. You've thought enough. Now it's time to let go. Gently, fully, quietly, and rest. There's a kind of peace that comes when you stop trying to be seen a certain way. When the need to impress, to prove, to be approved of, slowly fades. Epictetus believed that true peace begins not when others speak well of you, but when you stop needing them to. He encouraged his students to seek something deeper than praise, something quieter, steadier. Virtue. Virtue, to Epictetus, was simply living in alignment with your values, acting with honesty, courage, patience, kindness, not because someone is watching, but because it's who you want to be. Praise might come, or it might not. But if your choices come from within, not from what others expect, then your calm becomes unshakable. The trouble with praise is that it doesn't belong to you. It's built on the shifting opinions of others. You might do the right thing and still be misunderstood. You might be kind and still be ignored. Praise is not always fair, and it's never guaranteed. If your peace depends on it, then your peace will always be fragile. But virtue, that's yours to carry. No one can take it. No one needs to see it for it to be real. You know when you've lived with integrity. You feel it in the quiet moments when you're alone with your thoughts. That's the kind of peace Epictetus pointed to, the kind that doesn't need applause. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. If you spent your day trying to be enough in someone else's eyes, you can let that go now. There is nothing to prove. You're allowed to simply be, without performance. You're allowed to rest in the truth of who you are, even if no one else sees it clearly yet. Epictetus reminded us that admiration is a fleeting thing. People change their minds. One day they lift you up, the next they forget. But your character, that belongs to you. It is built slowly, quietly, with small choices. No spotlight, no stage, just you, deciding to live by your values, even when it's hard. And sometimes it is hard. It's hard to act with patience when others rush. It's hard to speak gently when others criticize. It's hard to stay honest when no one is watching. But that's what makes virtue powerful. It doesn't depend on outcome. It doesn't require reward. It's a way of being that offers its own calm. The world often tells us to chase recognition, to measure our worth by approval, to shape ourselves to fit what's admired. But praise can become a kind of cage. If we always ask, will this make them like me? We lose sight of the deeper question. Is this true to me? Let the noise of the world fade for a while. Let go of the need to be seen, to be liked, to be applauded. That's not your work tonight. Your work is simply to return to your own quiet truth, to remember who you are when no one is watching. Virtue is not dramatic. It's not loud. It lives in small choices, in the way you listen, the way you treat others, the way you show up for yourself when things feel heavy. It is slow and steady, and it doesn't need to be perfect. It only asks that you try. And when you try, not for praise, not for approval, but for the sake of your own soul, something softens. The pressure lifts. You stop performing, you stop chasing, you start living. And in that living, you find rest. Epictetus didn't care if the world admired him. He cared whether he was living in accordance with reason, with dignity, with kindness. He taught that fame is nothing without peace of mind. And peace of mind only comes when you know your actions are your own, not borrowed from what others expect. You can let yourself rest now. You've done enough. You don't need to rehearse what you could have said or wonder how you were perceived. That's not your concern anymore. You acted as best you could, with what you knew, and that is enough. When you live with virtue, you don't need anyone to tell you you're good. You feel it. It hums quietly in the background. It doesn't rush. It doesn't boast. It just stays with you. Through disappointment, through change, through the quiet of nights like this one. And if you're still learning, still stumbling, still growing, that's okay. Virtue isn't about being perfect. It's about choosing again, moment by moment, to be honest, to be kind, to be brave in quiet ways. That effort alone is meaningful. That effort is enough. So now, take a slow breath. Let your shoulders relax. Let the thoughts of how you appeared, of what others might think, fade away. That's not where your peace lives. It lives here, in your own gentle effort, in your own quiet dignity. The world may never fully understand you, but you can understand yourself. You can live from that understanding. You can rest in it. And that is a peace no praise can match. You are already enough. You are already worthy of rest. Not because someone said so, but because you've shown up today with honesty, with care, with a heart willing to try. Let that be your comfort now. Let that be your pillow. You need nothing more. Just rest. The past is finished. The future isn't here. All we ever truly have is this moment, and even that doesn't last for long. Epictetus understood the pull of time, how the mind drifts backward into regret or forward into fear. But he taught that peace can only be found by returning again and again to the present. This breath, this feeling, this very moment as it is. He believed that much of our restlessness comes not from what's happening now, but from the weight of everything else we carry with us. The past with all its questions, the future with all its uncertainty. These things follow us, even into sleep. But they don't have to stay. The present is always here, waiting quietly beneath the noise. Epictetus would remind his students, gently but clearly, that no one can live tomorrow, and no one can relive yesterday. All we can ever shape is now. The way we respond, the way we breathe, the way we bring our attention fully to what's in front of us. This isn't easy, but it's freeing. It releases us from the grip of things we can't control. So often, we carry thoughts that don't belong to the moment. A conversation we wish had gone differently. A task we dread tomorrow. A fear that something may not work out. But none of those are happening now. Right now, you are here. Breathing. Lying still. Safe. The mind may try to race ahead or look behind, but the body stays anchored in the present. And that's where rest begins. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. Let the weight of time soften. You are not required to solve anything before you sleep. You are not asked to make sense of the past or to predict the future. You are simply invited to be here, just as you are. Epictetus taught that the present moment is enough, that in this moment we have everything we need to meet life as it comes. We may not be able to change what has already happened. We may not be able to know what's coming, but we can choose how we meet what is here. This is where strength lives, not in the ability to predict or control, but in the willingness to return to this breath, this space, this moment of rest. That is all life ever really asks of us, to meet what is as clearly and calmly as we can. And when we do that, something softens, the pressure lifts, the story quiets. The world outside can continue spinning, but inside we begin to feel still again. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. You don't need to keep reviewing what's already over. You don't need to keep bracing for what hasn't arrived. You are allowed to come home to now, gently, slowly, without effort. There's peace in the present, not because it's perfect, but because it's real, because it's the only place where life happens. When we are here fully, even for a few moments, the need to escape begins to fade. The need to control loosens its grip. We remember that we're okay, not because everything is certain, but because we've stopped trying to live anywhere else. Epictetus reminded his students that living well meant staying awake to the moment, not drifting through it, not pushing it aside, but meeting it with full attention. That doesn't mean constant alertness. It means being with what's real, with what's now, without needing it to be anything else. And now, as the day winds down, as the thoughts begin to slow, you can return to the present more easily. There is no pressure here, no demand, just quiet awareness, just this one breath, this one heartbeat, this soft space of now. If a thought about the past arises, let it come, then let it pass. You don't need to follow it. If a worry about the future appears, acknowledge it, then return. Again and again, return. This is the practice. This is the calm. It's okay if the mind wanders. That's what minds do. Epictetus wouldn't have expected you to stay perfectly present. He would have simply invited you back, gently, without judgment. He would have said, come back to what you can touch, what you can choose, what is in your hands now. And what's in your hands right now is peace. Not because everything is solved, but because you've stopped running. Because you've stopped resisting the present in search of something else. What's here is enough. So rest in that. Let your body settle into the moment. Let the future wait. Let the past sleep. They are not needed now. What's needed is only this: your quiet presence, your willingness to be here fully, even in stillness. You are already where you need to be. There is nowhere else to go, nothing else to carry. Just now. Just this. Let yourself fall into it. Let yourself rest. Some emotions rise quickly, without invitation. Anger is one of them. It can appear suddenly, at a word, at a tone, at something not said. It brings tension to the jaw, tightness to the chest, heat to the skin. And often, before the mind has caught up, the body is already reacting. Epictetus knew this feeling well. But he believed that between the first spark of anger and the moment we act on it, there is a space. And in that space, we are free to choose. He didn't say anger should never happen. He understood that we're human. We're bound to be stirred by others from time to time. But what mattered to him was what came next. What mattered was whether we rushed to meet that anger, or whether we let it slow. Whether we believed the first story the mind told, or paused to ask if there might be another way to see things. Epictetus taught that the person who is slow to anger is not weak. They are steady. They are strong in the quietest way, because they do not let others decide their peace. They do not give up their calm just because someone else has lost theirs. Most of the time, anger arises from misunderstanding, from unmet expectations, from assuming that others see the world exactly as we do, and feeling surprised when they don't. But Epictetus reminded his students that everyone sees through their own lens, shaped by their own experiences, their own fears, their own hopes. And when you remember that, it becomes easier to soften, to pause, to breathe before you speak. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. Let go of the feeling that you must respond right away, that you must defend or explain or fix. You are allowed to take your time. You are allowed to let things pass without needing to prove anything. You are allowed to stay calm, even when others are not. Being slow to anger doesn't mean becoming numb. It doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you take care with your emotions. You hold them gently, with awareness, instead of letting them carry you away. You give yourself space to respond, rather than react. And in that space, something shifts. You begin to see that most things don't require anger. that many moments can be met with quiet, with understanding, with silence, not because you've given up, but because you've chosen peace over friction, and that choice, made again and again, becomes a habit, a way of being that makes room for rest. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Whatever irritation or frustration is still echoing from the day, it doesn't need to follow you into the night. It's already over. You can let it dissolve now. Let it leave your body. Let your breath carry it out. Epictetus believed that peace comes from remembering what's ours to control. And other people's words, their moods, their mistakes, those are not ours. But our response, our tone, our steadiness, that belongs to us. That's where our calm lives. And when we rush to anger, we often lose more than we gain. We say things we don't mean. We rehearse arguments in our head. We build walls where none are needed. But when we're slow, when we allow the emotion to rise without acting on it, we give ourselves something rare, the chance to choose clarity. That doesn't mean others will always treat us kindly. Sometimes they won't. Sometimes they'll speak sharply, act unfairly, or misunderstand. But when you stay soft in the face of that, you don't lose your dignity. You don't become small. You remain rooted in your values. That's what Epictetus meant by strength. He once said, "If someone does wrong, that is their problem. My only concern is not to do wrong in return." That's a kind of freedom. The freedom to live by your own compass, no matter how others behave. And that kind of freedom makes rest possible. Because anger doesn't just pass through, it lingers. It plays over and over in the mind. It stirs old stories, opens old wounds. But when you're slow to anger, you give yourself the gift of stillness, of not carrying someone else's storm inside your own mind. Let yourself slow down now. If something today left you tense or upset, you don't need to carry it further. You can say, "That happened. I felt something. But I don't have to hold on to it. The day is done. The moment is gone. You are here now, where nothing needs to be resolved." Being slow to anger is a form of care. Care for your peace, for your sleep, for your heart. It means you've decided that calm is more important than control. That gentleness is more important than being right. That peace is something you can choose, even when the world pushes against it. You won't always get it right. That's okay. The goal isn't to never feel anger. It's to learn how to meet it, without becoming it. To give it space, without letting it lead. And the more you practice, the more natural it feels. Until, over time, the mind becomes a softer place, a quieter place, a place where rest is welcome. So now, with your eyes closing, with the breath growing slower, you can let go of whatever still clings. You don't need to defend yourself in your thoughts. You don't need to replay old conversations. You've already done enough. You are enough. Let anger pass like a shadow across still water. Let it rise and fall without resistance. You are not what happened. You are not what was said. You are this moment, this breath, this softness. And from that softness, you can sleep. Not because everything is perfect, but because you've made peace with what is. Because you've chosen rest over reaction, calm over conflict, gentleness over pride. You are already safe. You are already steady. Let yourself be. Let yourself rest. There's a quiet strength in remembering that nothing outside of you can truly harm who you are inside. Epictetus believed this deeply. He lived through loss, through hardship, through powerlessness, and still he taught that our peace, our character, our dignity These live within us, untouched, independent, whole. The world may bring discomfort. It may take things away. But it cannot take the part of you that decides how to respond. This was one of his simplest and most powerful teachings. It is not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Someone may speak sharply, or a plan may fall apart, or life may surprise us with something unwelcome. But those things, in themselves, don't damage who we are. What hurts us is how tightly we cling to expectations, to control, to stories about how things should be. It's in the resistance, not the event, that we begin to suffer. Epictetus encouraged his students to see that nothing external, not praise, not insult, not fortune or misfortune, can touch the core of their being. These things pass through life like weather, but the mind, if trained with care and patience, can remain calm through all of it, not untouched by feeling, but unshaken in its foundation. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Whatever tried to shake you today, someone's words, an unexpected challenge, a disappointment, it doesn't define you. You are still here, still whole, still capable of peace. When you believe that your well-being depends on what others do or what the world offers, it's easy to feel unsettled. But Epictetus showed a different path. He asked gently that we take back our power, that we stop outsourcing our calm to things we can't control, that we learn to say, "This is happening, but it doesn't have to harm me. I decide what it means." He didn't mean to deny pain. Pain is real. Difficulty is real. But those things live in the body, in the moment. They do not have to live in the mind. They do not have to become stories that echo long after the moment has passed. Even when something painful happens, we have a choice: to meet it with panic or with patience, to let it harden us or soften us, to let it pass through, or to hold on to it so tightly that it becomes a part of who we think we are. Epictetus believed that we can let things pass through. We can feel them, learn from them, and still remain whole. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. You don't need to defend yourself against everything. You don't need to be alert to every shift, every signal, every possibility of harm. You are safe now. Not because the world has stopped moving, but because you've stepped back into your own stillness. There's a kind of rest that comes when we stop resisting the fact that life is unpredictable, when we stop needing every moment to go a certain way, when we stop seeing the outside world as something that can take our peace. Because it can't. Not unless we give it permission. Epictetus knew that even if everything around you changes, you can remain grounded. Even if others speak unfairly, you can remain kind. Even if plans fall apart, you can begin again. The outer world may twist and turn, but the inner world, if cared for, can stay steady. This isn't about ignoring what happens. It's about seeing clearly that what happens is not you. That your worth doesn't rise and fall with other people's opinions. That your calm doesn't have to depend on outcomes. That you can be gentle with yourself, even in the face of difficulty. Sometimes, a single moment from the day tries to follow you into the night. A tension, a fear, a memory. But even then, even when the feeling is strong, you can remind yourself, this is not me. This is something passing through. It does not need to settle in. It does not need to stay. You don't have to believe everything your mind tells you, especially not the thoughts that say, this moment has ruined something, or you're not safe unless things go just right. Those thoughts come from fear. But fear isn't always true. It's just one voice, and you don't have to let it lead. The more you practice stepping back, the more clearly you'll see that nothing outside can reach your inner peace, not unless you hand it over. And you don't have to. You can hold on to it gently, protect it quietly, live from it, even when the world is loud. You're allowed to rest in that now, in the understanding that your peace is not fragile, that your dignity is not at risk, that your calm is something you can return to, even after a hard day. Epictetus would remind you, no one harms you without your consent. You are the one who grants power to others over your mind, and that power can always be taken back. With one breath, one pause, one gentle shift of attention away from the storm and back to your center. Peace often hides in plain sight. It's not waiting on a grand moment or a perfect achievement. It lives quietly in the spaces we overlook, in stillness, in less, in simplicity. Epictetus believed that the more we strip away what is unnecessary, the more clearly we see what truly matters. A simple life, he taught, is not an empty one. It's a life made lighter by clarity. It's a kind of freedom. He often reminded his students that complexity leads to tension. When we surround ourselves with too much, too many possessions, too many obligations, too many distractions, the mind becomes cluttered. We carry more than we need, worry more than is helpful, and expect more than is reasonable. And all of it pulls us away from the quiet that allows rest. But simplicity returns us to what's essential, to the core of life that asks so little: warmth, nourishment, honesty, care, not performance, not comparison, not constant striving, just presence, just enough. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore, not to every task, every goal, every expectation. Let some of it go now. The essentials are already here: your breath, your body, your gentle willingness to slow down. Epictetus lived with very little, not by choice at first, but later, with deep understanding. He saw that once you stop chasing things you don't need, life becomes much more peaceful. You're not always guarding something or fearing its loss. You're not distracted by endless decisions. You begin to find comfort in the quiet. You begin to appreciate what's already within reach. Simplicity isn't about having nothing. It's about being free from the need for more. It means letting your life match your values, not your impulses. Letting each day unfold with enough space to think, to breathe, to feel. Sometimes that means saying no to things that look appealing but don't bring real peace. Sometimes it means clearing the mind of what doesn't matter, so there's room for what does. And often it means pausing, just long enough to notice that this moment, this quiet one, might be all you truly needed. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. Let go of the need to fill every minute. You're not behind. You're not late. You don't need to chase anything tonight. Simplicity gives you permission to stop, to sit still, to be enough just as you are. Epictetus believed that peace is not complicated. It comes naturally when we stop interrupting it, when we stop crowding our lives with expectations, when we stop needing things to look a certain way in order to feel okay. What's simple is often what's true, and what's true is always enough. We live in a world that often mistakes more for better, more achievement, more noise, more movement. But a busy life is not always a full life, and fullness does not require frenzy. Sometimes it only asks for presence. In a simple life, you begin to see beauty in the small things: a clean space, a sincere word, a restful evening. These things don't shout for attention, but they hold you quietly. They make space for you to be soft, to be slow, to feel calm. And the simpler your surroundings, the quieter your mind becomes. Fewer demands, fewer comparisons, fewer reasons to stay on edge. What remains is something soft and real, a rhythm that doesn't rush, a kind of peace that doesn't depend on performance. Epictetus encouraged his students to seek that kind of life, not for its own sake, but because it makes room for virtue, for thought, for care. He knew that when we remove the distractions, we have more energy to live well, to be kind, to rest deeply. So if you feel tired tonight, not just in your body but in your mind, you don't have to fix anything. You don't have to rearrange your life in one breath. Just take this moment to remember how little you need to feel at ease. A quiet room, a soft pillow, a clear breath. You are not missing anything. You don't have to make the night special. You don't need more than what you already have to feel safe, to feel enough, to feel worthy of rest. Let simplicity hold you now. Let it soften the thoughts that ask for more. Let it remind you that peace isn't something to earn. It's something you return to the moment you stop trying so hard. You are already allowed to rest. You are already allowed to step back from the noise. The world will keep turning. You don't need to carry it. Simplicity brings peace, not because it removes all challenges, but because it helps you see clearly. It reminds you that so much of what you thought you needed was never essential. And what is essential is already here. So breathe gently. Let yourself feel the calm of this moment. You are here, and that is enough. Let the day fall away. Let your thoughts grow quiet. Let simplicity welcome you back to rest. Everything outside you can change. Your job, your surroundings, your relationships, even your body. But your character is the one thing that remains truly yours. Epictetus believed that above all else, the measure of a person is how they choose to live, not what they achieve or what they possess. Status fades, wealth shifts, plans fall through, but character, who you are when no one is watching, how you treat others, how you carry yourself through the world, that is the foundation that supports everything else. He spoke often of integrity, not as an ideal to be admired from afar, but as a daily practice. A simple way of showing up, being honest even when it's inconvenient, remaining patient even when others are not, speaking gently when you could choose harshness, keeping your word not for applause, but because it aligns with who you want to be. Character isn't shaped by ease. It reveals itself in difficulty. When things go wrong, when you're tired, when you're tested, that's when your choices matter most. Not because anyone else is watching, but because you are. And Epictetus reminded his students that they would have to live with themselves more than anyone else ever would. That the mind is your constant companion, and a clear conscience makes for restful sleep. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Whatever didn't go perfectly today, however you stumbled or fell short, it's okay. You are still growing, still learning, and even small efforts to be kind, to stay honest, to act with care, those matter. They shape something lasting, something no one can take from you. Epictetus taught that external success can come and go, often by luck. But virtue, character, belongs fully to you. No one can grant it to you, and no one can take it away. It's in your thoughts, your choices, your willingness to stay steady in a world that moves quickly and speaks loudly. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. the opinions, the comparisons, the pressure to perform. They don't define who you are. What matters is how you live when things are quiet, how you show up when there is no reward. That quiet strength, that inner alignment, is where peace begins. Sometimes we forget this. We chase validation, believing that if others approve, we must be doing well. But Epictetus urged us to measure our lives not by what others think, but by whether we are being true to our values, whether we're acting in a way that we can respect in ourselves. Because no matter what life brings, your character travels with you. And it's often in the smallest, simplest moments that character is formed, not in speeches or grand decisions, but in how we listen, how we treat a stranger, how we respond when no one is keeping score. The strength to do the right thing, quietly, consistently, is what builds a peaceful mind. He said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. That clarity, that honesty about who you are becoming, makes rest possible. When you know you've done your best, not perfectly, but with sincerity, you can let go more easily. You don't lie awake trying to rewrite the day. You don't carry regrets that don't belong to you. Even when others misunderstand or criticize you, your character stays yours. That's the comfort Epictetus offered. That's the freedom. If you live by principle, by care, by truth, then nothing outside needs to shake you. You can rest in the quiet knowledge that you lived well today, even in small ways. And if the day felt messy or hard, you don't need to punish yourself for it. You're not expected to get everything right. Growth is slow. What matters is the direction, the intention, the steady return to what feels right in your own heart. You don't have to meet any standard tonight. You don't need to impress anyone. You're allowed to be exactly who you are, and rest in that. Not because everything went perfectly, but because you're showing up honestly. That's all your character ever asks of you. So take a breath. Let it be deep and unhurried. Let your shoulders soften. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are simply living, trying, caring. That's enough. That's more than enough. When you live from character, you stop being pulled in every direction. You make your own ground. You stop asking others to tell you who you are, because you already know. That knowledge, that quiet trust in yourself, brings a special kind of rest. Not just sleep, but peace. A sense that you are whole, not because of what you've done, but because of how you choose to be, even now, even in the quiet. So let yourself drift into sleep, not with the weight of the day on your chest, but with the lightness of knowing you tried. You were honest, you cared, you stayed true to yourself. That's the kind of effort that builds something lasting. Your character is everything, and it's already enough. Let it hold you now. Let it steady you. Let it guide you gently into rest. Not every thought that passes through the mind deserves your attention. Some come from habit, others from fear. Some drift in from outside voices that never truly knew you. Epictetus taught that while we may not control which thoughts arise, we do have the power to decide which ones we welcome, which ones we believe, which ones we allow to stay. The mind is like a gate, and you are its keeper. You don't need to chase every idea, every worry, every memory that flickers into awareness. You can pause. You can ask quietly and without judgment, is this thought helpful? Is it kind? Is it mine to carry? And if the answer is no, you can let it go. Let it drift past like a cloud, needing no action and leaving no mark. He reminded his students that our thoughts shape how we see the world. Two people may experience the same event. One feels despair, the other feels calm. Not because the event is different, but because the thoughts they chose to hold are different. That choice, Epictetus believed, is where our freedom lives, in that space between the world and our reaction to it. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. If the mind is busy tonight, filled with loops and questions and unfinished stories, know that you're not required to believe all of it. You can rest without solving every thought. You can let some of them go unanswered. Thoughts can feel urgent. They come with energy, with momentum. But urgency isn't the same as truth. Just because a thought repeats itself doesn't mean it's right. Just because it's loud doesn't mean it's wise. Some thoughts are echoes, old fears, outdated stories, ideas that belonged to someone else but stayed in your mind long after they were needed. Epictetus encouraged people to examine their thoughts with care, not with harshness, but with curiosity. He didn't ask for perfection, only for awareness. He taught that if you notice a thought causing distress, you don't need to fight it. You only need to recognize that it may not be useful. You can replace it with a more peaceful one rooted in reason, one that brings you back to the present. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. Let the inner voice grow quieter. You are not the sum of your thoughts. You are the space they pass through. And in that space, you are free to choose which ones you allow to stay. Not every worry is worth your energy. Not every self-judgment is worth your trust. Sometimes, the most caring thing you can do for yourself is to say, "This thought isn't helping me rest. I'll return to it later, if I need to." And often, when you return to it later, it's already softened, or vanished entirely. You don't need to argue with your mind. You don't need to silence it with force. You can simply step back. You can shift your attention gently to what's calm, to your breath, to the warmth of your blanket, to the softness of this moment. The mind, left unchecked, will wander far. It will replay the past, imagine the worst, rehearse conversations that may never happen. But you are not lost in those thoughts. You are here, breathing, listening, choosing. Epictetus believed that peace doesn't come from avoiding difficult thoughts. It comes from learning not to attach to them, to meet them with clarity, then move forward, to say, "I see you, but I do not need to follow you." And that's something you can do now. As the day ends, you can notice the thoughts rising up. Some may be gentle, others may be sharp. Some may be about tomorrow. Some may be echoes of today. But you don't have to judge them. You don't have to fix them. You can let them come and go. Choose thoughts that comfort you, that remind you of your strength, that offer space, not pressure. Thoughts that speak kindly, that say, "It's okay to rest now. You've done enough. You're not weak for wanting peace. You're not failing if your mind feels busy. This is what it means to be human. What matters is that you return, again and again, to the thoughts that help you feel whole. Thoughts that soften, not tighten. Thoughts that steady, not stir. Character is shaped by thought, and rest, too, begins there. A calm mind doesn't mean no thoughts. It means kind ones, true ones, chosen with care. So now, choose rest, choose stillness. Let the thoughts that demand too much fall away. Let the ones that offer peace take their place. You can always return to this. Whenever the mind pulls you elsewhere, you can return. The thoughts you choose become the tone of your life. Tonight, Let that tone be soft, let it be gentle, let it be kind. You are already enough, you are already safe. Let yourself rest in that truth now. Let yourself sleep. Not everyone will understand your path, and that's okay. Epictetus believed that the quiet pursuit of a good life doesn't need attention, validation, or applause. You do not need to announce every step you take or explain every choice you make. You don't need to justify your values to those who don't share them. Instead, he taught that the most peaceful life is the one lived in alignment with what truly matters, gently, consistently, and without noise. When you walk your path silently, you stop waiting for others to agree with you. You let go of the pressure to be seen a certain way. You begin to trust that your integrity is enough. And when you stop performing, even just a little, you start to feel lighter. You have more space to reflect, more energy to move inward, more time to live simply. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. If you spent the day trying to be understood, trying to be accepted, trying to be enough in someone else's eyes, you can let that effort go now. Your life is not a performance. It is a quiet unfolding, and you're allowed to walk it without needing anyone else to follow. Epictetus often reminded his students not to boast about their progress. If you're becoming more patient, more mindful, more kind, there's no need to declare it. The growth itself is enough. Let your actions speak for you, quietly and steadily. Let your life become the evidence of your values. Not in grand gestures, but in the small ways you show up, even when no one's looking. He believed that peace comes when we stop living for approval, when we stop looking outward for confirmation and start looking inward for truth. That's where the path begins. Not in comparison, not in noise, but in stillness. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. The voices that push you to prove something, to be louder, to be faster, to be someone else, don't need your attention tonight. You're allowed to take a slower step, a smaller breath. You're allowed to be quiet and still and whole, even if no one else sees it. Walking your path silently doesn't mean hiding. It means choosing what matters to you and staying with it gently, even when it's not noticed, even when others question it. You don't have to defend every decision. You don't have to explain what brings you peace. If something aligns with your values, that's enough. If something feels honest and kind and grounded, it doesn't need to be loud to be true. This way of living doesn't always bring recognition, but it brings rest, because you're no longer at the mercy of approval. You're no longer chasing reactions. You're simply living your way, your pace, your principles, without needing an audience. And in that space, life becomes quieter, clearer, more peaceful. You begin to move with intention, not urgency. You begin to listen more and say only what needs saying. You find freedom in the silence, not because you've withdrawn, but because you've stopped performing. You are allowed to rest in that now. You are allowed to close your eyes tonight, knowing that you don't owe anyone a perfect version of yourself. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. You've already shown up. You've already walked your path. And that is enough. Epictetus would have told you to be content walking alone if that's what's required. Not in bitterness, but in confidence. He would remind you that truth is not always popular, that goodness doesn't always look like success, and that peace often comes not when others agree with you, but when you've chosen to live quietly in line with your own values. You don't need to make noise to make meaning. You don't need to tell the world how far you've come. Your growth belongs to you. Your progress, your calm, your choices, these are deeply personal. And the more you honor that, the more peaceful the path becomes. Sometimes silence is misunderstood. Some will think you've withdrawn. Some will expect you to explain more, do more, be more. But that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is only to walk gently, with care, with honesty, to return again and again to what feels steady and kind. That is the path. That is enough. And now, as the day ends, as your breath slows and your body softens, you can leave the noise behind. You don't need to carry anyone else's expectations. You don't need to rehearse what you might say tomorrow. You've already said enough. You've already done enough. Let yourself walk quietly into rest now. Let your thoughts settle like dust after a long day. Let your heart be still, not because everything is finished, but because you've chosen to be. You've chosen peace over noise, stillness over proving, depth over display. You are already enough, quietly, fully, just as you are. Let yourself rest in that truth. Let yourself sleep. There's a quiet kind of exhaustion that comes from resisting what is, from wishing the day had gone differently, from playing events over and over in your mind, searching for the moment it could have changed, searching for the part that might still be undone. But Epictetus taught that peace begins when we stop arguing with reality, when we stop asking the world to be anything other than what it is. He reminded his students that we suffer not because of what happens, but because of how tightly we cling to what we wanted instead. We think, it shouldn't have happened like that, or this wasn't supposed to be part of my story. But those thoughts, however understandable, don't change the moment. They only stretch the pain. They only deepen the tension between what has already happened and what we hoped would happen instead. To rest well, we must begin by making peace with the present, not because everything is perfect, but because it's already here, and no amount of thinking can undo it. No amount of resistance will smooth the edges of the day. What softens them is acceptance, not as resignation, but as a kind of honesty, a gentle, open acknowledgement of what is. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. You don't need to keep carrying the weight of something that's already finished. Whatever happened today is over. It doesn't need your approval to exist. It only asks to be met with calm, with patience, with space to breathe. When we argue with reality, we trap ourselves in the past. We hold conversations that already ended. We rewrite outcomes that won't change. And in doing so, we miss the peace that was waiting quietly beneath it all. We miss the breath we could have taken, the rest we could have received, the stillness we needed all along. Epictetus believed that acceptance is a kind of strength. It's not giving up. It's choosing to move forward without dragging the past behind us. It's choosing to let reality be what it is, so we can decide clearly how to live within it. The world will not always match our hopes. People will not always act how we wish they would. Outcomes will surprise us. Plans will shift. But none of these things can truly harm us, unless we cling to the idea that they shouldn't have happened, that life must follow our expectations in order for us to be okay. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. Let go of the questions that begin with, why did it happen this way? Or, what if it had gone differently? Those thoughts are heavy. They loop without end, and they keep you from the softness of this moment where nothing more is required. The more we resist, the more we suffer. But when we pause, when we take a breath and simply say, "This is what is," something shifts. The fight inside quiets. The tension in the body releases, and what felt unbearable begins to soften. Epictetus knew that reality is not always easy, but it is always real. And the moment we stop demanding that it be different, we begin to feel steady again. Not because we like what's happened, but because we're no longer trying to rewrite it with our thoughts. This doesn't mean we stop caring. It doesn't mean we give up on changing what can be changed. It means we start from a place of clarity. We work with what is, not what we wish was still possible. And from that place, we move more gently, more wisely, more peacefully. You are allowed to stop resisting now. The day has played out. The conversations are done. The events have come and gone. All that remains is this quiet moment where you are safe, where you are allowed to rest. There's relief in allowing the truth to be enough, even if it's imperfect, even if it hurts, even if it asks more of you than you expected. Because when you stop fighting it, you start to see it clearly. And with clarity comes peace. Sometimes the hardest part of the day isn't what happened. It's our reaction to what happened. The thought that it shouldn't have. The feeling that it was wrong or unfair. But those reactions are not facts. They are choices. And like any choice, they can be set down when they're no longer useful. Epictetus didn't ask his students to feel good about everything. He asked them to see things as they are, and to respond from that place with care and wisdom. That's what makes rest possible. That's what lets the mind settle. Not perfection, but alignment. So now, with the lights low, with the body still, you can give yourself permission to stop replaying the day. You don't need to fix anything in your thoughts. You don't need to keep turning it over. What happened has already passed. You are here now. You don't need to be at war with life. You don't need to brace against the truth. You can meet it with softness, with breath, with the quiet courage of someone who is learning to live in peace with what is. The truth, even when it's hard, is always lighter than the struggle against it. And when you stop arguing with reality, you begin to feel that lightness again. You begin to sleep more easily. You begin to heal. Let yourself feel that now. The calm of no longer needing to resist. The relief of no longer demanding that things should be other than they are. The comfort of resting fully in what's already here. You are already safe. You are already enough. Let the moment be what it is. Let yourself be who you are. Let go of the struggle and rest. Everything you own, you hold only for a little while. Epictetus saw this clearly. Clothes, homes, tools, keepsakes, they come into your life, and eventually they leave. And if you're not careful, they begin to own you more than you own them. You start worrying about keeping them safe, or about what might happen if you lose them. You begin to measure your comfort, even your happiness, by what stays in your hands. But he taught something different. He taught that peace doesn't come from holding tightly. It comes from loosening your grip. He reminded his students that nothing outside you is truly yours. Not your belongings, not your reputation, not even your body. These things are on loan, temporary, unstable by nature. But that's not a reason to fear. It's a reason to cherish them gently while they're here, and let them go when the time comes, without bitterness, without panic, with calm. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. If something today was lost, broken, delayed, or taken, you are still whole. The core of you remains untouched. The peace you're looking for is not in the objects around you. It's in how lightly you carry them. When we attach our sense of identity or stability to possessions, we create tension, a silent, ongoing fear that something could be taken from us at any moment. And because so much in life can be taken, that fear never rests. But when we begin to separate our well-being from what we own, we feel a different kind of strength, a quieter, deeper freedom. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. The advertisements, the comparisons, the pressure to upgrade, to accumulate, to keep up, they don't speak to the soul. They speak to the part of the mind that fears being left behind. But you are not behind. You are already enough, even without anything more. Epictetus didn't tell people to throw everything away. He didn't say possessions were bad. He only asked us to understand what they are. Not a part of us, not the source of meaning, but tools. Useful for a time, appreciated while they're here, and released without sorrow when they're gone. Think of all the things you once loved that are no longer with you. At the time, they might have felt essential. Now, they're just memories. You survived their loss. You continued on. That's because your peace was never truly in those objects. It was always in how you chose to meet the moment. To detach from possessions is to return to simplicity, to clarity, to the quiet confidence that you don't need more to be okay. What you need is already here. Your breath, your thoughts, your capacity to choose kindness, to rest, to begin again. Some nights your mind might hold on to something, a bill unpaid, a thing misplaced, an item broken or missed. But even then, you can choose to say, "This is not me, this is just a thing, and I am still whole without it." You don't have to fix it all before you sleep. You don't need to gather everything around you to feel safe. What belongs to you in the truest sense cannot be bought. Your values, your choices, your calm. These are the things Epictetus would ask you to guard. Not with fear, but with attention, with care. Because unlike possessions, they cannot be taken from you. Not unless you give them away. You are not the contents of your room or your closet or your wallet. You are something steadier, something that doesn't age or rust or disappear. And when you return to that truth, you rest more deeply. You stop gripping the world so tightly. You stop asking it to keep you whole. Let yourself soften now. Let your surroundings become quiet. Whether the day brought gain or loss, success or setback, tonight you are safe. Not because of what you have, but because of who you are. You may enjoy your things. You may take care of them. But you don't need them to feel complete. You don't need them to define your worth. And that simple truth is what frees you. It frees you to sleep without fear of what might be taken. It frees you to live without the constant pull to acquire. It frees you to breathe more deeply, knowing that what matters most can never be lost. So let the day settle. Let the thoughts slow. Whatever you didn't fix today, whatever you couldn't find, whatever you couldn't hold on to, it's okay. You haven't lost yourself. You are still here. Epictetus would tell you to wake each day ready to let go, not because life is cruel, but because it is changeable, and trying to stop that change only creates pain. But welcoming it, meeting it with open hands, that creates peace. And now, as you lie still, as the breath moves gently in and out, let go of what doesn't belong to you tonight. You don't need to protect your possessions while you sleep. You don't need to gather the world close. All you need is already within you. Steady, quiet, free. Let yourself rest there now. Let yourself sleep. Some things become harder the more we chase them. Comfort is one of those things. The more we center our lives around trying to feel good all the time, avoiding every discomfort, softening every edge, arranging each moment to be pleasant, the more fragile we become. Epictetus saw this clearly. He taught that true peace doesn't come from creating a life where nothing difficult ever happens. It comes from building a mind that can stay steady no matter what does. When you seek comfort above all else, the world starts to feel threatening. Even the smallest discomfort becomes a disruption. A long line, a wrong word, a restless night. Things that are part of ordinary life start to feel like failures. But Epictetus reminded his students that discomfort is not something to fear. It's not a sign that something has gone wrong. It's simply part of being alive. He believed that our energy is better spent learning how to be okay in uncomfortable moments than trying to avoid them altogether. The body may be tired, the weather may turn, someone may disappoint you, but your peace doesn't have to disappear when those things happen. It only disappears when you've taught yourself that peace depends on ease. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. Let go of the pressure to make everything feel just right before you can rest. You don't need the perfect conditions to let go. You only need a little space in your mind that says, I can be with this too. When you stop chasing comfort, you start building strength. Not a harsh, hardened strength, but a quiet, resilient one. The kind that allows you to stay soft even when things aren't soft around you. The kind that knows peace is not the absence of discomfort, but the ability to meet it calmly. Epictetus often reminded his students that those who seek only pleasure become dependent on it. That kind of dependence makes life narrow. Every challenge becomes a threat. Every change feels unsafe. But when you learn to welcome both comfort and discomfort without needing either one to last, you begin to feel something steadier. You begin to feel free. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. If today didn't feel easy, that's okay. If your plans shifted, if something felt off, if you didn't find the comfort you were looking for, you can let that be. You can stop chasing. You can rest right where you are. There's nothing wrong with enjoying ease when it comes. Warmth, stillness, a soft bed, all of these things are kind gifts. But when they don't arrive, or when they don't last, your peace doesn't need to vanish with them. You can welcome comfort when it's here and release it when it's not. That's the balance Epictetus offered. He knew that the person who avoids all discomfort also avoids growth. They miss the chance to see what they're capable of. They never discover the strength that comes from simply staying still in an imperfect moment, without needing to fix or flee. And even now, as you settle in, you may notice small discomforts, a thought that lingers, a position that isn't quite right, a feeling that the day could have gone differently. But none of those are obstacles to rest. They are simply passing sensations, passing thoughts. They don't need to be solved. They only need to be allowed. The body doesn't need to feel perfect to fall asleep. The mind doesn't need to be completely empty. You are not required to feel only peace in order to be peaceful. You're allowed to rest even when things feel unfinished, even when there's a little noise, even when the comfort you were hoping for hasn't fully arrived. Epictetus would remind you that the mind is stronger than we often realize, that you can choose how you meet each moment, that even discomfort can be met with softness, with patience, with care. And when you stop trying to escape every uncomfortable feeling, It stops chasing you. When you stop fearing it, it loses its grip. You begin to see it simply as part of the rhythm of life. Sometimes warm, sometimes cold, sometimes smooth, sometimes difficult, but always moving, always changing, and always something you can meet with steadiness. So now, as the day comes to a close, you can stop searching for the perfect place to rest. You've already found it. It's here, in this breath, in this moment, in this willingness to be with things exactly as they are. Let yourself soften into that. Let yourself sleep, not because everything is calm, but because you are learning to be calm with everything. That's a deeper comfort. One that doesn't depend on your surroundings, one that lives quietly inside you. You don't need to chase anything tonight. Let yourself be still. Let yourself rest. Words from others often come loaded with force, opinions, judgments, tones that catch us off guard. An insult can feel sharp, sudden, and personal. It lands, and for a moment, it might feel as if it defines us. But Epictetus gently reminds us that no insult has any power unless we give it meaning. What another person says about you is not who you are. It's simply a sound, an arrangement of language shaped by their own views, habits, and emotions. It has nothing to do with your inner peace unless you choose to let it in. He believed that if someone insults you and you become angry, it's not because of their words. It's because of your own judgment about those words. You have interpreted them as harmful. But if you choose not to take them personally, not to accept their view as your own, then the insult has no weight. It passes like wind through branches, noticed, but not retained. There is a kind of freedom in realizing that you don't need to respond to everything. You don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. You already know it. You know what lives inside you. And that truth doesn't change based on what someone else sees or fails to see. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. Let the words of others drift away without echoing inside you. You don't need to gather every opinion and carry it around. You can leave it where it landed, untouched. Epictetus saw insults as reflections of the speaker, not the one being spoken to. When someone lashes out, it often says more about their unrest than about any truth in you. A calm soul does not seek to harm. A balanced mind does not belittle. So when you hear something meant to hurt, you can pause. You can notice it, but you don't have to claim it. You can say, quietly and inwardly, "This doesn't belong to me." He told his students that it is not insults that disturb us, but our thoughts about them. And those thoughts are something we can shape, soften, and release. You don't have to hold on to someone else's bitterness. You don't need to agree with their judgment. In fact, you don't even need to oppose it. You can simply let it be nothing to you. When you resist reacting, you give yourself space. In that space, there's peace, there's strength. There's the reminder that not everything deserves your energy. Some things are better left unanswered, like stones thrown into the ocean. They make a splash, but the water soon returns to stillness. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Whatever was said, whatever echoed in your mind today, you can let it go now. It doesn't define you. It doesn't follow you into sleep. You are not the sum of opinions. You are something deeper, quieter, more rooted. Staying indifferent doesn't mean you're weak or numb. It means you understand the value of your calm. It means you choose not to be dragged into someone else's storm. And that choice is yours, always. Even now, if something someone said today is still sitting inside you, you can gently set it down. It doesn't need to come with you into rest. You can say, as Epictetus might, "That's their view, not mine." And in that moment, you reclaim your peace. The world is full of voices. Not all of them are kind, not all of them are clear, but your mind can stay steady. You can move through noise without absorbing it. You can hear words without letting them shape your self-worth. And when you begin to trust that truth, insults lose their sharpness. They become smaller, quieter, easier to forget. You no longer need to react because you've already chosen what matters. And it's not someone else's anger, it's your stillness. So rest now. Let the day close without carrying every word that passed through it. Let your breath slow. Let your heart feel light. You are free from the judgments of others. You are already enough. Stillness isn't something you find outside of yourself. It's not waiting in a quiet room or at the end of a long walk. It lives in you. Always has. Epictetus believed that peace begins not with what happens to us, but with how we meet it. The world can move fast, thoughts can spiral, noise can grow louder, but stillness is a choice you can return to again and again, not by force, not by pushing everything away, but by softening, by loosening your grip on what doesn't need to be held. He saw the mind as a space you could shape. If it becomes crowded and frantic, it's not because it must be. It's because you've allowed too much in. Not in blame, but in habit. And habits can shift. You can let go of the tension. You can stop chasing every thought that runs past. You can pause, let things be. And in that space, stillness gently rises. Stillness doesn't mean silence. It doesn't mean emptiness. It means calm presence. It means not being pulled in every direction by what you can't control. It means staying with yourself, rooted and quiet, while life flows around you. Epictetus didn't speak of escape. He didn't promise relief from all things. What he offered was more powerful, the ability to remain steady inside, even when the outside shakes. When your thoughts rush or feel tangled, stillness doesn't come from fighting them. It comes from stepping back, from realizing you don't have to follow each one. You don't need to untie every knot right now. Let them drift. Let them rest. You can breathe a little deeper. You can release the need to fix everything tonight. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. Your mind is not a battlefield. It doesn't need to be at war with itself. You can treat it like a home. You can fill it with space and warmth and quiet understanding. Epictetus spoke often about directing attention inward, not in self-judgment, but in gentle observation, to notice how we respond, to notice how we're holding ourselves. And when we see agitation or fear, we don't attack it. We soften around it. We create a little more room. Stillness is the practice of non-reactivity, of pausing before responding, of knowing that even if something stirs within you, you don't have to act on it. That space between feeling and action is where peace grows. It's where the mind has room to breathe. It's where your truest self sits quietly, not needing to perform. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Not to thoughts, not to fears, not to the expectation of being calm. Stillness isn't perfection. It's not the absence of emotion. It's the willingness to remain with what is, without rushing to change it. It's staying open, even when you're tired. It's choosing to be here, now, in this breath, without chasing the next. Some days your mind will be busier than others. That's all right. Stillness doesn't judge you. It waits. It welcomes you back when you're ready. It's not something you earn, it's something you remember, like stepping into a familiar room, quiet and dimly lit, where nothing is expected of you. Epictetus knew the world could be harsh. He knew that people carry burdens they never asked for. But he also knew that no one could take your peace unless you gave it away, and that you could choose, moment by moment, to return to what's within, to keep that part of you whole, even if the world outside is scattered. If something within you is restless tonight, know that it doesn't need to be solved. You can simply be with it. Let it breathe. Let it settle on its own, like stirred water returning to stillness. You don't have to make it happen. Just don't resist. Let it unfold. The practice of inner stillness isn't grand. It's not dramatic. It's quiet and steady and personal. It's 1,000 little moments when you choose not to rush, when you choose not to let anxiety push you forward, when you stop trying to fix the past or predict the future, and instead just sit, breathe, rest. Your peace is not fragile. It's not small. It doesn't need perfect conditions. It only needs your attention, your care, your willingness to stay close to yourself. So rest now. Let go of the urge to figure everything out. Let stillness rise from within, not forced, not chased, just allowed. You are safe to slow down. You are safe to soften. You are safe to rest. In the quiet teachings of Epictetus, there is a gentle invitation to become an observer of life, rather than a servant to every emotion it stirs. The world, with all its noise and change, will never settle down just because we ask it to. But we can settle ourselves. We can choose not to chase after every disturbance, not to leap toward every sensation. We can step back, even for a moment, and watch. Observation is not the same as indifference. It is not numbness or withdrawal. It is presence without panic. It is being awake to the moment, without getting swept away by it. Epictetus believed that much of our distress doesn't come from events themselves, but from the judgments we attach to them. A word spoken sharply, a delay, a disappointment. The event passes, but our reaction holds on, tight and insistent, and yet we are not required to react. We can simply see. To observe is to allow space between the world and the self. Not walls, not barriers, just space. Breathing room. The kind of room that lets you feel something arise without instantly becoming it. Anger might appear. Frustration might knock. Fear might ripple through the chest. That's all right. Feelings are visitors. They pass through. You don't have to invite them to stay. When we react without pause, we give away our peace. We let someone else's behavior or a twist in the day control our state of mind. But Epictetus reminds us that our true power lies in our response, not in what happens, but in how we meet it. To meet it as an observer is to reclaim that power, to stay rooted while the world shifts. Sometimes observing means saying nothing, doing nothing, letting the moment unfold without interruption. Not every feeling needs a response. Not every problem needs a solution tonight. You can watch the thoughts drift across your mind like clouds. You don't need to follow them. You don't need to wrestle them to the ground. Just let them move. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. This kind of still attention takes practice. At first, the urge to react may feel irresistible. We're taught to respond quickly, to speak, to fix, to defend. But you can begin slowly. A breath before speaking. A pause before acting. A gentle check-in with your body. Is this true? Is this urgent? Is this something I want to carry? Observation is a way of caring for your own peace. It's a way of respecting your energy, your sleep, your mind. There is no need to burn with every flame you see. You can watch the fire from a distance. You can learn from it. You can warm your hands by it. But you don't need to step into it. Epictetus saw life as a kind of theatre. Things happen, some beautiful, some difficult. People come and go. Roles change. But we don't need to lose ourselves in every scene. We can step back into the audience, even for a moment. We can watch without judgment. We can let go of the belief that everything requires our opinion, our reaction, our involvement. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. In the stillness of night, it becomes easier to see. Thoughts rise and fall. Worries stir, then dissolve. If you stay present, without chasing or pushing, you'll notice how little needs to be done. Most things quiet themselves when left alone. Most storms pass when we stop running into them. This doesn't mean suppressing what you feel. It means softening around it, making space for it, observing it with compassion, like watching a child cry, not with panic, but with understanding. You're allowed to witness your thoughts without obeying them. You're allowed to feel something and still choose peace. You don't have to become the tension in your chest. You don't have to become the tightness in your jaw. Those are just signals. You can notice them. Breathe. Let them go. Epictetus spoke often about the strength in restraint, not as denial, but as wisdom. The strength to watch without being pulled. The strength to remain anchored in your values, your calm, your stillness. The world is full of sudden turns. People will say things they don't mean. News will come without warning. Bodies will tire. Time will stretch or collapse. But inside you, there is always this option: to observe before reacting, to witness what's happening without handing over your serenity to it. This is not cold. This is not distant. It is kind. It is gentle. It is self-protection without closing the heart. And tonight, if something stirs within you, an old memory, a fear, a sharp word, you don't need to fix it. You don't need to do anything with it. Let it move through. Watch it without clinging. Let your breath be slow and full. Let your body soften into rest. The mind that observes is not trapped. It's not burdened. It's free to choose, free to rest, free to let go. So sleep now, with nothing left to manage. Let whatever passes, pass. You are not the noise around you. You are not the storm. You are the one who sees. And that is enough. Holding on to resentment is like carrying a heavy stone in your pocket. At first, it seems manageable. You tell yourself it's not that bad, that you can carry it a little longer. But the longer it stays, the more it weighs on you. Not just physically, but in thought, in feeling, in the quiet parts of the night, when everything is still and the memory comes back, sharp and bitter. Epictetus gently reminds us that clinging to old wounds does not protect us. It only deepens them. To hold a grudge is to keep a piece of the past burning inside the present. It's a quiet tension beneath the skin, a knot that never loosens. And yet, the original harm is already done. The moment has passed. The words were said. The actions taken. What remains is not the event itself, but our grip on it, the unwillingness to let it drift away. Epictetus knew that people would disappoint, that they would say things without thinking, that they would act out of ignorance or fear. But he also knew that our peace does not depend on their behavior. It depends on how we carry what happens. When someone wrongs us, we don't have to pick up that hurt and carry it with us. We can notice it, feel it, and then gently set it down. He once said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." In other words, the pain may start outside, but the suffering continues because of what we continue to feed. The story we replay, the judgment we reinforce, the image of ourselves as the one who was hurt and cannot forget. Forgiveness, in this context, isn't about excusing harm or pretending things were fine. It's not about making someone else feel better. It's about lightening the load within your own heart. It's about choosing rest over resentment, freedom over fixation. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Some grudges are small, quiet things. A misunderstanding, a sharp tone, a forgotten promise. Others are deeper, tangled in years of pain. And while no one can rush you toward healing, Epictetus offers the comfort of this truth. You are not obligated to keep pain alive. You are allowed to move forward, not because they deserve it, but because you do. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. When you lie down at night, your body asks for rest. But sometimes your mind won't let you. It replays moments that hurt. It speaks in someone else's voice, echoing old arguments. It revisits the sharpness of what was said, what wasn't said, and it holds you there, awake and tight. But you can whisper back to it, softly, gently, "Not tonight." You can let your breath carry those thoughts away. You can invite stillness into the places that have been clenched too long. No one is watching. No one needs to know. This forgiveness is for you, not them. It doesn't have to be spoken aloud. It doesn't even have to be complete. Just a loosening. Just enough to begin resting. Epictetus believed that peace came from within, from the thoughts we chose to nurture, from the emotions we allowed to linger. Holding a grudge is a form of attachment. It says, "I need this anger. I need this pain." But what if you don't? What if, without it, your sleep becomes easier? What if, without it, your heart becomes quieter? There is no victory in bitterness, only fatigue, only distance from the quiet joy of your own presence. And so, slowly, with tenderness, you can begin to untangle the knot. To say, "I no longer need this. I no longer need to define myself by what they did. I want peace, more than I want to be right. And if the thought comes back again tomorrow, that's all right. You can meet it again, not with force, but with patience. Each time it visits, you have another chance to say, "Not now." Each time you let it go, it returns with less weight. There is a kind of courage in choosing not to retaliate, in choosing not to define yourself by someone else's mistake. You are not made stronger by bitterness. You are made stronger by softness that endures, by the quiet refusal to be shaped by cruelty. Tonight, there is nothing you need to fix, no battles to replay, no grudges to sharpen. The day is over, the air is calm, and you are safe here, in this quiet moment. If anything lingers, let it fade. If any harshness remains, let it dissolve into your breath. The past does not need to travel with you into your dreams. Let it stay behind. Let it grow distant. Let your body rest, free from the weight of old stories. Sleep now, with nothing in your hands. No blame, no judgment, no bitterness to carry. Just yourself, soft, whole, and at peace. Of all the things we do each day, speaking is one of the easiest. Words flow freely. They fill space. They rush in to answer silence. But for Epictetus, the true power of speech was not in its abundance, but in its restraint. He believed that words should serve purpose, not ego. That silence is not emptiness. It is a form of wisdom. So often, the world encourages noise. The quick reply, the constant commentary, a reaction to every thought that crosses the mind. But many words are spoken not to help, not to heal, not to understand, only to be heard. And that kind of speech rarely brings peace. It only adds more sound to an already crowded mind. To speak only what matters is to choose words as carefully as one might choose a seed. Not every seed needs to be planted. Not every passing thought needs to be shared. Some can remain inside, unspoken, allowed to settle, allowed to dissolve. Epictetus said, "Nature gave us one tongue and two ears so we could listen twice as much as we speak." He wasn't just making a clever observation. He was pointing to something deeply restful. The idea that silence, when paired with presence, is more than enough. You don't always have to respond. You don't always have to explain. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. There's a kind of stillness that comes when you stop trying to fill every quiet moment. A gentleness that arises when you no longer feel the need to defend your opinions or prove your worth through conversation. When you realize that it's okay to say less. It's okay to wait before speaking. It's okay to hold a thought, examine it, and decide that perhaps it doesn't need to be said at all. This doesn't mean shutting yourself away. It doesn't mean withholding warmth. It simply means that your words are intentional, thoughtful, kind, and when they are few, they carry more weight. They land more softly. They echo longer. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Some people speak to fill silence, because silence feels uncomfortable. But what if it didn't have to? What if silence could be your companion, not your enemy? What if it became a space where your thoughts could rest instead of race? When you stop speaking unnecessarily, something unexpected happens. You begin to hear more, not just others, but yourself. You notice the tension in a conversation before it grows. You recognize your own patterns of speech, your urges to correct, to interrupt, to impress. And slowly, those urges lose their urgency. Epictetus taught that philosophy is not about clever words. It's about how we live. And in the stillness of fewer words, you may find yourself living more clearly, responding more gently, feeling less drained by conversation, less tangled in misunderstandings. Because when you speak only what matters, what you say comes from a place of calm. It's not always easy. There will be moments when you feel the pull to speak, out of habit, or discomfort, or a desire to be seen. But in those moments, you can pause. You can breathe. You can ask, is this helpful? Is it kind? Is it necessary? If the answer is no, you can choose quiet instead. Not as avoidance, but as care. Not as withdrawal, but as strength. There is a peace that lives in choosing when to speak and when to wait. A serenity in not needing to respond to everything. Not needing to share every opinion. Not needing to fix or argue or defend. Just resting in your own stillness while the world keeps moving. And if someone misunderstands you, that's okay. Epictetus reminds us that we are responsible for our own thoughts, not the thoughts of others. You don't need to chase every misinterpretation. You don't need to correct every assumption. You can stay rooted in your own clarity, your own calm. Tonight, as you prepare for rest, notice what your mind wants to say. Watch the thoughts that want to become words, and ask yourself, gently, do they need to? Or can they float by, unspoken, like leaves on a quiet stream? The world will still be here tomorrow. There will be more chances to speak, to share, to express. But in this moment, here and now, you are allowed to be quiet. You are allowed to rest without comment, without explanation. You are allowed to speak only what matters. And perhaps tonight, that means saying nothing at all. Kindness, when it needs a reason, begins to lose something of its softness. If it must be earned, weighed, or justified, it turns into a transaction rather than a gift. Epictetus understood this. He believed that kindness should flow from character, not from calculation. That we don't need to wait until someone deserves our goodness to offer it. We only need to choose it, gently and quietly, without making it into a performance. To live well, Epictetus said, is to live according to nature. And human nature, when not clouded by fear or pride, has the capacity for warmth. When we are free of expectation, of praise, of return, of recognition, what remains is something simple, the steady hand of a kind heart. It doesn't try to convince. It doesn't demand thanks. It simply does what it can, in small ways, over and over. Being kind without reason isn't weakness. It's clarity. It means you are no longer waiting for the world to meet your conditions before offering your better self. You don't hold back softness just because others are sharp. You don't need a perfect situation to be gentle. You simply remain true to the values that live within you, because that's where peace begins. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Much of our unease comes from reacting to how others behave. Someone is cold, so we match them. Someone is harsh, so we guard ourselves. But Epictetus invites us to step out of that pattern. He reminds us that another person's cruelty doesn't require our retaliation. Their anger doesn't have to stir our own. In fact, our greatest power lies in responding differently, not with bitterness, but with stillness, not with resentment, but with quiet grace. When we stop needing reasons to be kind, we rest more easily. Our days feel lighter. We no longer waste energy scanning for fairness or waiting for someone else to change. We simply offer our calm. And we do it because it reflects who we are, not because we're keeping score. This doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. It doesn't mean ignoring harm or accepting injustice. But it does mean holding your center. It means knowing that being kind doesn't make you smaller. It makes you free. It means that even when the world feels loud or unfriendly, you can move through it with a soft gaze and a clear heart. You are allowed to show warmth without explanation. You don't need permission to be gentle. And you don't have to prove your strength by being hard. Strength can look like patience. It can sound like a kind word spoken into silence. It can be the moment you choose to understand rather than win. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. Imagine a life where your actions aren't tied to approval, where you offer kindness and never check to see if it was returned, where your goodness isn't on a leash, pulled back when others disappoint you. That kind of freedom is rare, but it's possible, and it begins with a simple shift from "they made me feel" to "I chose to feel." Epictetus would say that what others do is not within your control. What you do, that is yours. That's where peace is built. That's where sleep becomes easier, because the weight of trying to manage other people's emotions begins to lift. You don't need to control their moods. You don't need to mirror their coldness. You can just stay steady in your own quiet light. Even if no one notices your kindness, even if no one thanks you, even if your small gesture disappears into the moment, it still matters. Not because of the outcome, but because of who you became in choosing it. There is something deeply restful about not needing to prove yourself, about moving through the world with a calm hand and a soft step, about knowing that kindness is not a reaction, but a decision. One that you can make again and again, without waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect person. And when your day has been long, when your mind has carried too many conversations and your body is tired from navigating the weight of others, remember that you are allowed to stop. You are allowed to rest. And the kindness you offer yourself, by choosing not to dwell, not to judge, not to hold grudges, that too is part of this practice. Tonight, let your thoughts slow down. Let go of what wasn't said, or what wasn't fair. Let your kindness be quiet, not because it isn't real, but because it doesn't need to shout. It's already enough. It already lives in you. And that is more than enough. Some roles in life are chosen, others are given. Some feel natural, and some feel heavy. But whatever role a person finds themselves in, parent, friend, stranger, caregiver, worker, Epictetus teaches that peace comes not from resisting the part we've been asked to play, but from accepting it with presence, dignity, and calm. He reminds us that life is like a play, and we are actors on the stage. We do not write the script. We do not choose the cast. But we are still responsible for how we perform our part. If fate gives you a quiet role, be quietly excellent. If it gives you a burden to carry, carry it with steadiness. What matters is not how large your part is, or how long it lasts, but how deeply you inhabit it, how honestly, how simply. There's relief in that, in knowing you don't have to control the entire play. You only need to focus on your own part. You don't need to rewrite the lines. You don't need to worry whether others are watching. You just need to show up, fully, gently, with care. Sometimes people spend their lives wishing for a different path. They compare, they resent, they struggle against the reality of where they've landed. But this only deepens the ache. What softens the mind, what quiets the spirit, is a gentle yes to what is. Not a defeated yes, a peaceful one, the kind that says, I may not have chosen all of this, but I can still choose how to meet it. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. When you stop wishing for another role, you make space to actually live the one you have. You notice things you hadn't seen before, the subtle connections, the quiet moments, the quiet ways your presence matters. The world stops being a contest and starts being a place where you are simply allowed to be. Not better than anyone, not lesser than anyone, just human, just present. Epictetus didn't speak of this as passive acceptance. He spoke of it as a form of inner strength. To live well within your role is not to give up. It's to become steady, to stop fighting the current and begin walking calmly with it, eyes open. Some days you may lead, other days you may follow. But in either case, you remain whole. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. What would it feel like to stop chasing a life that isn't yours? To stop waiting for permission to rest? To stop measuring yourself by roles you never asked for? Epictetus would say that nothing needs to be added to make your life complete. You are already standing on the path you are meant to walk. You only need to walk it with honesty. This kind of acceptance brings quiet strength. Not the loud strength of ambition or conquest, but the softer kind. The kind that holds firm even when the winds change. The kind that allows you to meet each day with clarity, not resistance. With humility, not self-pity. The truth is, no one gets a perfect script. No one gets to write every chapter. But you can still choose how to read the lines you're given. You can still choose how to carry yourself through the day. And in doing that, You take something that once felt outside your control and turn it into a form of peace. When the world feels uncertain, when roles shift and paths disappear, return to what you can always hold: the way you meet life, the way you treat others, the way you honor your place in this moment. These are not small things. They are everything. So rest now. You don't have to chase a different life tonight. You don't have to fix what can't be fixed or solve what doesn't need solving. You only need to breathe in the quiet, to feel that where you are, as you are, is enough. You're already in your place. The play continues, and you are still here. When the day has been long, when demands have pulled in every direction, when the voices of the world have grown louder than your own, there is one simple thing left to do: return to yourself. Epictetus knew this well. He spoke not of escaping life, but of coming back to the quiet center within it. He urged people to make their own mind a place of calm retreat, not a place to hide, but a place to remember who you are, what matters, and what never really did. The world is full of distractions, full of noise and urgency and restlessness. It will always try to pull you outward, toward opinions, toward expectations, toward 1,000 things beyond your reach. But Epictetus said, stop often, stop and come back. Come back to the only space you truly control: your own thoughts, your own choices, your own breath. This return is not dramatic. It is not a performance. It is a quiet, inward step, a pause, a gentle folding inward. And in that stillness, things start to soften. The thoughts that once raced begin to slow. The worries that once clenched start to release. You feel again the weight of your own presence. And it's enough. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Returning to yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. It's how you remember that peace is not out there somewhere. It's here, within, waiting. It's how you stop being swept away by every opinion, every judgment, every demand for who you should be. It's how you come back to who you already are, underneath it all. For Epictetus, this practice was the essence of freedom. Not the freedom to do anything, but the freedom to remain grounded, no matter what the world brings. When insulted, he returned to reason. When tested, he returned to principle. When praised, he returned to humility. He did not lose himself in reactions. He returned again and again to the steady place inside, and lived from there. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. The beauty of this return is that it's always possible, even in the middle of a conversation, even in the middle of difficulty, even here, now. All it takes is a breath, a pause, a shift in attention. You are not your schedule. You are not your status. You are not your fears. Beneath all of that, you remain the same, a mind with the power to choose peace, and you don't have to get it perfect. Returning to yourself is not about staying calm forever. It's about noticing when you've wandered away, and coming back gently without judgment. No blame, no guilt. Just a quiet recognition. Ah, I left. But I can come back now. Even in rest, the mind can wander. It chases regrets, rehearses arguments, reviews lists. But you can choose to stop. You can turn inward, not in isolation, but in restoration. You can let your breath guide you home. You can let the day slip off your shoulders. You can remind yourself, I am not everything that happened. I am not what others think. I am this stillness, this awareness, this gentle being beneath it all. Epictetus said, if you wish to improve, be content to appear foolish. And what could be more humble, more quiet, than simply returning to yourself when the world expects you to keep chasing, keep reacting, keep pretending. There is power in that simplicity. There is grace in that return. So rest now. Let go of what pulled you away today. Come back to the quiet. Come back to the calm, steady part of you that's always been there. You're not missing anything. You're not behind. You're here. And that's all you need to be. Rest is not weakness. It's not laziness or retreat. To Epictetus, rest was something else entirely, not the absence of strength, but its foundation. A still body can house a powerful mind. A quiet evening can restore the soul more than any struggle. And a calm breath, taken fully, can carry more clarity than 1,000 rushed decisions. He did not see rest as separate from action, but as something that makes right action possible. The soldier who never sleeps cannot fight. The thinker who never pauses cannot reason. The person who is always tense, always alert, always driven, they forget what it means to act with intention instead of reaction. Strength, in the Stoic sense, isn't loud. It's not about being hard or unshakable. It's about knowing where your limits are and choosing when to step back. To recognize that the world will keep spinning whether or not you keep moving. And sometimes the greatest thing you can do for yourself is to stop, gently, deliberately, and let your muscles unclench, your thoughts slow, your heart return to its natural pace. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. So often we chase resilience through effort. We push ourselves to keep going, to stay alert, to prove we're capable. But true resilience, the kind Epictetus believed in, comes from rhythm, not resistance. From knowing that every strong movement must be followed by a still one, every decision must be balanced with reflection, every striving must be softened by stillness. Even nature understands this. The sea does not crash endlessly. It rises, and it falls. The sun does not blaze without pause. It shines, then sets. All living things require rest to remain alive, and to remain themselves. Humans are no different. Rest is where you remember your own voice. It's where the noise clears, and things come into focus again. Not all at once, slowly, like dust settling in a quiet room. It's where your energy is restored, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, where old wounds can close, where perspective returns, where things stop feeling urgent and start feeling real. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. Sometimes the hardest thing is allowing rest without guilt. The mind whispers, "You haven't done enough. There's more to finish." But Epictetus would ask, enough for whom? For what? He would remind us that rest is part of the discipline, choosing not to act impulsively, choosing not to burn yourself out for fleeting approval, choosing to honor your needs, even when the world does not. He often said that it's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. The same is true of rest. We are not exhausted because rest is missing. We are exhausted because we believe we should not need it, because we feel ashamed to pause. But there is no shame in stillness. There is wisdom. The body heals when it is still. The mind clears when it is not forced to solve. And the soul? The soul remembers who it is, not through effort, but through peace. So much of what we chase becomes unnecessary in the quiet. The approval, the status, the endless doing. In rest, we return to something older, simpler, more honest. We are no longer defined by output. We are no longer measured by reaction. We are just here, alive, present, worthy, even without effort. And when we rest like that, not in collapse, but in clarity. We don't weaken, we gather. Like a field after harvest, like a mountain under snow, we hold. And we prepare for what comes next, not with panic, but with patience. You are allowed to stop tonight. You are allowed to soften. Nothing urgent will fall apart in this quiet. Nothing important will be lost. If anything, this is where the most important things begin. In stillness, in slowness, in the soft strength that rest allows. Of all the quiet freedoms a person can experience, perhaps the most peaceful is this: to live as if they've already let go. Epictetus didn't suggest a reckless detachment or an empty kind of indifference. He pointed to something far gentler, a way of living that's not ruled by clinging, not to status or to control or to the fear of change. It's a posture of ease, not apathy. A calm recognition that most of what we try so hard to grasp was never really ours to hold in the first place. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop gripping. It means you loosen the need to control the outcomes, the narratives, the expectations placed on you by others or by yourself. It means living with openness rather than tension, with trust in what will come, instead of fear about what might not. There's a softness in the Stoic idea of letting go that often surprises people. It's not hard, not cold. It's not about pushing the world away. It's about embracing the world without needing to possess it. It's about being with what is, fully and quietly, without demanding that it stay the same, without resisting the shape it naturally takes. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Much of our restlessness comes from our efforts to preserve things as they are. We want to freeze the good moments, protect our roles, defend our ideas of ourselves. We fear loss so much that we never truly relax. But Epictetus reminds us, everything in life is borrowed. Our health, our loved ones, our time, all gifts on loan from nature. We don't own them. We walk beside them for a while. To live as if you've already let go is to move through the world with open hands, to hold what comes with gratitude, and to release what leaves without bitterness. Even your identity, your plans, your sense of certainty, these too are shifting. Nothing that truly matters can be taken from you. Only the surface things change. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. Letting go isn't a single act. It's a practice, a gentle, moment-by-moment return to calm, to yourself, to the present. When anger rises, you can let go of the impulse to strike back. When fear grips you, you can let go of the story it tries to spin. When a possession breaks, when a plan fails, when someone misunderstands you, you can let go of the need to control or correct or convince. You can simply breathe and remember. This was never in your hands to begin with. And that's where the freedom is. That's where the peace lives. Not in fixing everything, but in realizing you don't have to. In knowing you're already whole without needing the world to affirm it. In seeing that what matters most, your integrity, your character, your response to life, those things are always yours, untouched by fortune or circumstance. When you live as if you've already let go, you stop arguing with time. You stop resenting the past, fearing the future, or comparing yourself to others. You just live. Not passively, but clearly, deliberately, quietly aware that life is short and that clinging wastes it. Epictetus taught that what disturbs us is not events themselves, but the attachments we place on them. We want more than we need. We hope for guarantees. But life was never built on guarantees. It flows, it shifts, it surprises, and it doesn't ask for our permission. The calmest people aren't those who have perfect control. They're the ones who've learned to let go of control altogether, who can feel deeply, live fully, and still release what they cannot hold, who can love without fear, speak without defensiveness, and rest without guilt. You're allowed to live that way. Even now, especially now, to let go of what you thought you had to be, to let go of how others see you, to let go of the pressure to explain, prove, or achieve. You can meet the world as you are, steady, gentle, clear, and trust that whatever comes, you will know how to greet it, and whatever leaves, you will know how to let it pass. In that space, between holding on and giving up, there is something else. Stillness, strength, freedom, rest. A kind of rest that doesn't depend on circumstances. A rest that arises from no longer being at war with life. Tonight, you can begin again, not by fixing anything, just by loosening your grip, by breathing a little deeper, by trusting that nothing essential can be lost. What's meant for you is already here. Your breath, your awareness, your ability to choose peace. And when you live as if you've already let go, rest is no longer something you try to earn. It becomes who you are.